Lin Fan's mind was filled with the biology knowledge that he had just obtained. Therefore, he did not stay in school for long. Instead, he drove the Mercedes-Benz G-Class alone and went straight back to Coiling Dragon Villa. On the coffee table in the living room, there was a stack of documents, human islet recovery medicine technique. Next to it were bottles of transparent liquid. Obviously, this was the reward for completing the mission. These bottles of transparent liquid were precisely the human islet recovery medicine. Lin Fan thought about it and called out, "Lil White. Master, please give your instructions." The super smartwatch on his wrist made a crisp sound and flashed a gentle light. Lin Fan's lips twitched. Where did this guy learn his lines from? "Can you help me register the patent of the human islet recovery medicine?" As Lin Fan spoke, he waved the bottles and documents in his hands. Even though Lin Fan did not lack money, directly contributing his technology he was not able to do so. He was not a good person. The super smartwatch shot out a red beam of light and scanned the documents and the human inlet recovery medicine. Of course, no problem. Then countless codes appeared on the super smartwatch. About 10 minutes later, Lil White spoke again, "Master, I've already registered a global patent." At the same time, electronic patent documents appeared on the screen of the super smart watch. Lin Fan said, "Not bad." "Thank you for your compliment, Master," said Lil White happily. A smiley emoji appeared on its screen. Lin Fan looked at the computer not far away and muttered, "Let's just write the thesis." As he spoke, he strode forward. 5 seconds later, the computer turned on. Lin Fan's hands were jumping across the keyboard. A series of extremely complicated papers appeared on the screen. About an hour later, a complete thesis appeared. Lin Fan wrote his name in the first author position. Wu Tian and Zheng Qian were written as the second authors. When he was working on the super battery thesis, Zhao Zukin and Li Rongfo were the ones who showed Lin Fan the experiment. Hence, Lin Fan put down their names as the second authors. This time, Wu Tian and Zheng Qian let him watch the biological experiment. Naturally, Lin Fan would not be biased. "I sent it to science last time, so I'll send it to nature this time." Lin Fan muttered to himself. He found nature's email and sent it. Then Lin Fan said, "Lil White, do the same as last time. Get the thesis approved in the shortest time possible." "Leave it to me, Master," Lil White said. At this time, it was early in the morning in America. Barry Aiken, the editor of Nature, was lying on a soft bed, sleeping soundly. The next moment, the sound system, television, washing machine, and refrigerator in his house, all the electrical appliances that could make a sound, rang out at the loudest volume. Barry Aiken was so frightened that he stood up. His eyes widened as he cried out in surprise, "The machines have turned into monsters." Plug. Then he fell straight to the ground and fainted. It was also at this moment that the electrical appliances in the room returned to normal. This happened to Esmond Bevans, who was also an editor of Nature as well. All the electrical appliances are ringing. That night, the appliances in the homes of many Nature editors turned on automatically and made sounds. Some editors fainted from fright while others fell ill from fright. As for the chief editor, he found an email in his computer mailbox, "Principles of Human Islet Recovery Medicine." The next day, in the Humph University's biomedicine laboratory, under the leadership of several world-famous biomedicine professors, an extremely urgent experiment was carried out. Lin Fan was completely oblivious to all of this. He had just woken up from his dream and looked at his phone screen. Notice from Merchant Bank, 7,532,102 yuan was deposited into your account. Lin Fan put his phone aside and muttered, "Let's see what I can get by signing in today." Sign in. Ding, congratulations, you've obtained the mountains in the southern suburbs of Jiangbei City. Mountains in the southern suburbs, what's the use of this? I can't be the king of the mountains. Lin Fan shook his head and said, "Forget it, it's better than 10 million. At this moment, Lin Fan's phone rang. He looked at the caller ID and saw that it was Liu Yuheng. Lin Fan had a good impression of Liu Yuheng. Firstly, if Liu Yuheng had not provided him with the information about the 100-year-old ginseng, Lin Fan would have had to spend a lot more time to obtain the 100-year-old ginseng and obtain the right to purchase medical water. Secondly, Liu Yuheng's personality and character were both very good. Therefore, Lin Fan pressed the answer button. "Good morning, brother Lin Fan, did I disturb your rest?" As soon as the call connected, Liu Yuheng's loud voice came through. Lin Fan said, "No, I've been up for a while." "That's good," Liu Yuheng said. "Brother Lin Fan, I have good news for you." "Good news?" Lin Fan asked curiously. Liu Yuheng did not answer immediately. Instead, he asked, "Brother Lin Fan, the mountains in the southern suburbs of Jiangbei are under your name, right?" Liu Yuheng already knew about the mountains when he had just acquired them. Was he that resourceful? Even though he was thinking this way, Lin Fan still replied, "Yeah, why?" "It really is you, brother Lin Fan, ha ha ha, brother Lin Fan, congratulations, you found a mine in that mountain, a gold mine," Liu Yuheng shouted excitedly. He seemed happier than if he were to discover his own mine. Lin Fan was stunned. He never expected to find a gold mine in the mountains. In that case, would he not become a legendary mine owner? "Brother Lin Fan, according to the experts' estimation, the gold ore in your mountains is worth more than tens of billions of yuan." Initially, Lin Fan was a little curious and happy that he had become a mine owner. After hearing Liu Yuheng's words, he became much calmer. Worth tens of billions of yuan. He owned several companies and buildings of the same value. His shares in Little Tanuki Group and Penguin Group had reached more than 1 trillion. He really did not need to care too much about a mere tens of billions of yuan. Hence Lin Fan said, "Is that so? Then my luck isn't bad." He had obtained a gold mine worth tens of billions of yuan. However, he only said one sentence: his luck was not bad. Was this just not bad? This was great, all right. If it were someone else, they would probably jump up in joy. However, Liu Yuheng thought about how Lin Fan had increased his funds by 400% in 3 days. He felt a little enlightened. After all, for a financial genius, tens of billions were nothing, right? Yes, that should be it. 344. A beautiful woman should wear beautiful clothes, crying. 1. Today, when geologists discovered that there was a gold mine in the southern suburbs, it caused quite a stir in Jiangbei City. Many people, including the Jiangbei government, wanted to get involved. However, they soon discovered that the mountains had an owner. The master's name was Lin Fan. That was why Liu Yuheng had called Lin Fan. Liu Yuheng and Lin Fan chatted for a while more before hanging up. Lin Fan rubbed his chin and said, "A gold mine." After thinking for a moment, he dialed the number of the general manager of the Flying Dragon Security Company, Wang Xingli. Wang Xingli seemed to have been waiting for the call. It rang once before it was immediately picked up. "Hello, Mr. Lin, what can I do for you?" Wang Xingli said in an extremely respectful tone. Lin Fan was quite satisfied with Wang Xingli. The preparation of buses every time he and his coursemates gathered, as well as how he handled the situation at the Hyatt Hotel, previously showed that he had good work ability and attitude. Lin Fan said, "I found a gold mine in the mountains in the southern suburbs. Do you have a way to mine it?" When Wang Xingli heard this, his breathing became hurried. Was Mr. Lin going to put him in an important position? "Mr. Lin, I promise that I can extract all the gold," he said excitedly. "Good," Lin Fan said. After Lin Fan finished his breakfast, he drove his Mercedes-Benz G-Class and headed straight for the KM Mall. He had made an appointment with Qiu Ziqian and Huang Ling to go shopping together yesterday. During this period of time, he was either in school, accompanying Ling Ru, or going to Li City to fetch Su Ningjing. As a result, it had been a while since he had accompanied Qiu Ziqian and Huang Ling. At this moment, Qiu Ziqian and Huang Ling had already arrived at the entrance of the KM Mall. Qiu Ziqian was wearing a colorful dress today. It complemented her voluptuous figure and snow-white skin. She looked like a fairy standing in the rainbow. Huang Ling was wearing a light yellow dress. Her beautiful face and perfect figure were filled with warmth. She could melt people's hearts. The two of them stood at the entrance like beautiful scenery, attracting the gazes of all the handsome men and beautiful women who came in and out. At the same time, they also attracted the attention of a man with long back hair who was dressed in a white shirt. His name was Guo Zixiang. Guo Zixiang was an ordinary white-collar worker. Usually, his hair would be styled in a bowl cut and he would wear gold-rimmed glasses every day. He was a yes-man in the company. Today, he changed his style and did a hairstyle that he thought was handsome. He changed into fashionable black-rimmed glasses, raised his head, puffed out his chest, and walked forward with arrogance. He was very smug. Last night his father called to say that there was a mine in the mountain in front of their house, a gold mine. After Guo Zixiang received the news, he immediately jumped up for joy. A gold mine. This meant he would soon become a super-rich tycoon. In the past, he had been submissive because he always felt that he was poor and inferior. Now that he knew he was going to be rich, he was completely free. The sleeping beast in his heart had finally awakened. In the past, Guo Zixiang would never dare to strike up a conversation with a beautiful woman. Today, however, he dared to. Guo Zixiang said, "Lin Fan should be here in a while. Let's go to the entrance and take a walk." Yes, yes, Huang Ling said. Hence, the two of them walked into the Chanel shop at the entrance. "Welcome to Chanel," the saleswoman smiled and said, "May I help you?" "We'll just take a look first," Guo Zixiang said. "All right," the female sales assistant said. Hence, Guo Zixiang and Huang Ling looked at the clothes one by one and compared them to the other. They were like children who had seen their favorite toy and their faces were full of smiles. However, they did not notice that a man had been following behind them. It was Guo Zixiang. It was Guo Zixiang's first time entering a Chanel store. He first stole a glance at Guo Zixiang and Huang Ling. Then he could not help but pick up two pieces of clothing to secretly look at the price. 28,999 yuan. 45,888 yuan. Guo Zixiang was shocked and could not help but take 2 steps back. The price was simply too expensive. At this moment, Huang Ling suddenly noticed the blue garment of clothing that Guo Zixiang had just seen. The price was 28,999 yuan. She said, "That one seems pretty good." When Guo Zixiang heard this voice, his entire person went a little limp. Then he suddenly thought of something. He was now a super-rich tycoon. It was just a dress that cost tens of thousands of yuan. Thus, he raised his head again like a gentleman and took 2 steps forward. He picked up the piece of clothing that cost 28,999 yuan and smiled at Huang Ling. Beautiful women should wear more expensive clothes. Then he turned to the salesperson and said, "Hello, please wrap this dress up." After saying that, he handed over a bank card. "All right," the salesperson said. She picked up the bank card and swiped it gently on the POS machine. Beep. A crisp sound rang out from the machine. Then the receipt appeared. Guo Zixiang picked up the dress and handed it to Huang Ling, saying, "For you, pretty lady." He felt that he was so cool now. The beauty would definitely be touched beyond words. Guo Zixiang even began to imagine he and Huang Ling eating together and holding hands. However, Huang Ling's voice quickly interrupted his imagination. No need. Guo Zixiang was not angry and said, "You don't have to be polite with me, pretty lady." At this moment, a crisp sound came from the entrance of the shop. "She's not being polite. If she likes it, I'll buy it for her." This voice belonged to Lin Fan. Guo Zixiang's and Huang Ling's eyes lit up when they heard that. Then they rushed forward and hugged Lin Fan's arm tightly. They said happily, "Lin Fan." If it were in the past, Huang Ling would have been more reserved. She would not hug Lin Fan with Guo Zixiang in a crowded place. However, after not seeing him for a while, Guo Zixiang's longing for Lin Fan reached an uncontrollable level. Therefore, she could not care less. Seeing this, Guo Zixiang froze. What was going on? These two beauties actually had a boyfriend. Moreover, it seemed to be the same person. Why? Lin Fan did not care about that. He turned to the salesperson and said, "Help me wrap up all the clothes that they took a fancy to just now." When Huang Ling and Guo Zai heard this, they immediately felt as if they had eaten candy. The salesperson was a little stunned and said, There are a total of 8 pieces of clothing. Do you want all of them?" Lin Fan nodded, "Yes." Yes, sir, the salesperson said excitedly. She quickly packed the clothes and said, it's a total of 198,990 yuan. 8 pieces of clothing for less than 200,000 yuan. What a bargain. Lin Fan took out his bank card. Beep. After a soft sound, the receipt appeared. At the same time, 19 red packets appeared in Lin Fan's phone. Then Lin Fan held Huang Ling's left hand and Qiu Zixian's right hand as they walked out together. Only Qiu Zixian was left, holding a piece of clothing that cost 28,999 yuan. He was stunned. The salesperson beside him saw that he had been standing in the shop without moving. She could not help but ask, "Sir, do you need any more help?" Qiu Zixian came back to his senses and waved his hand repeatedly. No, 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 no need. Then he walked out of Chanel. At this moment Qiu Zixian's stomach growled. He glanced at the barbecue restaurant in front of him and walked in. Perhaps it was because he had just spent tens of thousands of yuan and had not succeeded in hitting on a beautiful woman. He wanted to eat something to vent his anger. Perhaps it was because he had become a super-rich tycoon, so he wanted to indulge in high-quality beef. Therefore, Qiu Zixian ordered a lot of dishes for this meal. He was very satisfied. Qiu Zixian burped and wiped the grease from the corner of his mouth. Waiter, the bill, please. Hello, that's 799 yuan in total, the waiter said. In the past, Qiu Zixian's heart would definitely hurt if he spent 799 yuan on a meal. Today he was very relaxed. After all, he was now a super-rich tycoon. Hence he casually took out his bank card. The waiter took the bank card and gently swiped it on the POS machine, but soon there was an urgent series of beeps. I'm sorry, but your bank card has insufficient funds, the waiter said. Insufficient funds, Qiu Zixian frowned. How is that possible? However, he quickly remembered that he only had 46,000 yuan on his card. He had just used 45,888 yuan to buy a Chanel dress. It seemed normal that his card had insufficient funds. Then Qiu Zixian took out his phone and looked at his WeChat balance, 13 yuan. He could not help but cough and say, "Ooh, waiter, wait a moment, I'll make a call first." "All right," the waiter replied. After saying that, he walked to the side. However, the waiter's eyes were fixed on Qiu Zixian. It was obvious that he was trying to prevent him from escaping. Qiu Zixian did not notice this. He dialed his father's number directly. After 2 rings, the call was connected. "Zixian, why are you calling?" His father's slightly hoarse voice came from the phone. At the same time, there was a dull rumble. "Dad, what's that sound?" Qiu Zixian asked. "Didn't I say yesterday that a gold mine was discovered in the mountains, so the machines are here to mine?" Qiu said. As he spoke, he spat out a mouthful of thick phlegm. Qiu Zixian had never liked his father spitting. He thought it was very disgusting. However, at this moment, he thought he heard the sound of nature. He was finally going to become a super-rich tycoon. "Really?" Qiu Zixian said excitedly. "They're already here to mine. Dad, transfer me a few 100,000 yuan first." What did you say, you son of a b******, Qiu shouted. Qiu Zixian said, "Transfer me a few 100,000. Since we found a gold mine, our family should get at least tens of millions, right?" "Who told you that we're going to get tens of millions?" Qiu shouted. "Bullsh****, what does it have to do with us that someone else discovered a gold mine?" Qiu Zixian was stunned for a moment and said, Didn't Grandpa say that the mountains belong to our family?" "Your grandfather also said that he was a commander in the past," Qiu shouted. "He was just a soldier on the front lines." Qiu Zixian's heart turned slightly cold. Immediately after, he said, but didn't our family used to farm in the mountains?" Qiu sneered. "I've pooped in the park before. Does that mean the park is mine too? Is there anything else?" Qiu asked. "If there's nothing else, I'll go and look at the excavators." After saying that, he hung up the phone. Qiu Zixian held his phone and was in a daze. No. There was no gold mine in his family. He was no longer a super-rich tycoon. There was nothing else. Everything was gone. When he slowly lowered his head and saw the Chanel dress that he had spent 45,888 yuan on, his eyes turned slightly red as he started crying. At this moment the waiter walked over and said, "Excuse me, sir, are you going to pay now?"
Eh?
Lin Fan, Qiu Ziqian, and Huang Ling had no idea what Qiu Zixiang had experienced. The three of them chatted as they shopped. They were very relaxed and happy. When they left the mall, they bought 20 pieces of clothing, 6 pairs of shoes, and 3 bags. It was a fruitful trip. At night, Lin Fan brought Qiu Ziqian and Huang Ling to Tribute Garden Restaurant. Dozens of waiters had already lined up in 2 rows to welcome them. The luxurious private room was filled with rose petals and swaying candlelight forming a big heart. On the huge dining table there were many tempting delicacies and wine. When the three of them walked into the room, fireworks exploded outside the French windows, forming a dazzling heart shape. Flowers, delicacies, wine, fireworks, it was like a dream. Qiu Ziqian's and Huang Ling's beautiful eyes flickered along with the candlelight. This meal was filled with happiness. When Lin Fan brought Qiu Ziqian and Huang Ling back to Yaqi City, Qiu Ziqian and Huang Ling could not hold themselves back anymore and pounced into Lin Fan's embrace. This night was destined to be sleepless.
Eh?
After that, Lin Fan stayed in Yaqi City for 2 days. It was not until the 3rd day that he returned to the Coiling Dragon Villa. He sat on the soft sofa and looked at the 302 red packets on the screen. He muttered, 302, let's see what I can get. Open them all. Ding, congratulations, you've obtained 2 yuan. Ding, congratulations, you've received 1,999 yuan.
Eh?
Ding, congratulations, you've received 888 yuan. Ding, congratulations, you've obtained a car Cullinan.
Eh?
Ding, congratulations, you've received 334 yuan. Ding, congratulations, you've obtained a 1 yuan critical hit card.
Eh?
The 302 red packets were obtained by spending 3.02 million yuan. After opening these red packets, Lin Fan received a total of 89,112 yuan, a Cullinan, and a 1 yuan critical hit card. Cullinan's price was 9 million. As for the 1 yuan critical hit card, he could earn 100 million yuan if he spent 1 yuan. Regarding this, Lin Fan's expression did not change at all. He was still sitting on the sofa and playing with his phone. After 2 days of hard work, that night Lin Fan slept very comfortably and soundly. Lin Fan slept comfortably and soundly. The medical and pharmaceutical industry, on the other hand, was in an uproar as if a level 12 storm had been set off. This was because there was a new paper published in Nature, Principles of Human Islet Recovery Medicine. Gray Rui Medical Group, America. The president, Jonathan Darwin, stared at the screen with his sharp eyes. The 2 technical directors were like puppets, holding their breaths and standing at the side. After a long time, Jonathan Darwin slowly said, "What do you guys think?" The technical director who wore gold-rimmed glasses said, "Last night I conducted an experimental analysis based on the paper. The data is completely consistent." The taller, fair-skinned technical director said, "This paper was jointly tested by Professor Mantis, Professor Harvin, Professor Roslev, and other professors from the University of California. They did a total of 10 sets of data and each set of data matched the paper." Jonathan Darwin said, "So you're saying that this human islet recovery medicine can really treat diabetes?" The 2 technical directors looked at each other and nodded. From the current data, that's indeed the case. Jonathan Darwin got up and paced back and forth in his office. After a while, he picked up the phone on the table and said, "Arnie, contact Lin Fan, the author of Principles of Human Islet Recovery Medicine, as soon as possible. I want to obtain the patent for the human islet recovery medicine at all costs. At the very least, I want to obtain the rights to develop and sell the patent." Jonathan Darwin was the CEO of Gray Rui Group, one of the world's top pharmaceutical companies. He knew very well what this medicine meant. Some people said that AIDS was the most terrifying. There were tens of millions of people suffering from AIDS worldwide, and hundreds of thousands of people died from AIDS every year. The number of people suffering from diabetes in the world had reached hundreds of millions. Almost every second, several people died of diabetes. In the medical world, the danger and importance of diabetes could definitely be ranked in the top 10 diseases. Now, someone had actually developed a drug to treat diabetes. To pharmaceutical companies, this was like a nuclear weapon. Therefore, not only Grey Rui Group but other powerful groups like Luo Shi Group were making similar moves.
They,
Lin Fan did not care about any of this. When the dazzling sunlight shone through the cracks of the trees and onto the ground like a dazzling star, Lin Fan slowly opened his eyes. Out of habit, he glanced at his phone. A text message had already appeared on the screen. Notice from Merchant Bank, 7,489,000 yuan was deposited into your account. Sign in. Ding, congratulations, you've received 1 million yuan. Lin Fan ignored the message and yawned. He slowly got up, washed up, and ate breakfast. When Lin Fan walked out and opened the door, a tall and sturdy car appeared at the door. It was a Cullinan, which he had obtained yesterday. Lin Fan nodded in satisfaction. This car looks good, I'll drive it today. As soon as he finished speaking, Lin Fan opened the car door and sat inside. The soft leather seats, the carbon fiber panels, and the steering wheel that was full of texture, coupled with the dazzling starry ceiling, gave people a luxurious and comfortable experience.
boom.
He stepped on the accelerator, and the V12 with 571 horsepower made the entire car roar like a dragon. About 20 minutes later, Lin Fan arrived at Jiangbei University. Lin Fan had just parked his car when Song Yi, Ma Zhang, and Zheng Jinbao happened to pass by with their school bags. Cullinan, brother Lin Fan, you changed cars again. Song Yi's eyes widened like light bulbs. Zheng Jinbao said excitedly, the appearance of it is too domineering. Ma Zhang did not say anything, but he stared at Cullinan without blinking. Obviously, he was also very fascinated. Brother Lin Fan, can we go in and take a look? Song Yi asked. Lin Fan smiled. Of course, why are you being so polite with me? All right, Song Yi said happily. Zheng Jinbao and Ma Zhang could not wait to get into the Cullinan either. The seats are too comfortable. A starry sky. Is this an umbrella that costs 100,000 yuan?
They,
The three of them touched each corner of the car, occasionally letting out a sigh of praise. After a long time, they reluctantly left the Cullinan. Brother Lin Fan, where have you been these past few days? Song Yi asked. Were you busy getting this Cullinan? That's not true. Someone sent the Cullinan directly to my house in the past few days. I wrote a thesis and got a piece of land, Lin Fan said. In Lin Fan's eyes, the mountains also belonged to the earth. Therefore, there was nothing wrong with saying that he got a piece of land. However, when Song Yi and the others heard it, they were puzzled. Is it a very big piece of land? Ma Zhang asked. It's quite big, Lin Fan said in a relaxed manner. The mountains in the southern suburbs are mine now. Silence. The entire scene was suddenly silent. Ma Zhang, Song Yisheng, and Zheng Jinbao were stunned. Lin Fan had taken ownership of a giant piece of land. Brother Lin Fan, I'll kneel before you, Song Yi, Zheng Jinbao, and Ma Zhang said in unison.
they,
Just as Lin Fan and the others walked into the classroom, an excited voice suddenly sounded from behind them. Lin Fan. Lin Fan turned around slowly. It was Professor Zheng Kaiyan and Professor Wu Tian from the biology department. Lin Fan, your Principles of Human Islet Recovery Medicine has been published in Nature, Professor Zheng Kaiyan said excitedly. As soon as he said this, the noisy classroom immediately quieted down because there was no class. They did not know what the Principles of Human Islet Recovery Medicine represented or what kind of paper it was. However, everyone had heard of Nature. If an ordinary student published a thesis on Nature, they would definitely be able to get a postgraduate degree, a PhD degree, or stay in school. If an ordinary teacher published a thesis on Nature, they would be promoted to a full professor. If they remembered correctly, Lin Fan had just published a paper in Science not long ago, right? Now he had published a paper on Nature. They were all humans, so why was there such a huge difference between them? Wu Tian said, Lin Fan, we didn't do anything but you wrote our names as the second authors. We don't deserve it. At the mention of this matter, Wu Tian's face was filled with shame and admiration. Back then, when he encountered many unsolvable problems in his experiment on the hormone, he thought of Lin Fan immediately. Lin Fan did not say much after he arrived at the laboratory. At that time, Wu Tian was still a little confused. Perhaps Lin Fan really did not have much knowledge about glucose. However, in just a few days, Lin Fan published a complete research paper on islets in Nature. Looking at it now, Lin Fan did not say anything after he finished watching the experiment because his experiment was full of mistakes. He did not know where to start. 347, I've already made it, choose. Yeah, we don't deserve it. Back then, when he encountered many unsolvable problems in the experiment, Professor Wu Tian kept asking Zheng Kaiyan to ask Lin Fan for help. At that time, Zheng Kaiyan felt that Wu Tian was desperate. Yes, Lin Fan was indeed an incredible genius. He solved several math problems and invented the earthquake prediction device and the super battery. However, nobody was perfect. Lin Fan could not possibly be perfect in every aspect, right? After all, she had never heard of him doing any research or having any achievements in biomedicine. However, due to Professor Wu Tian's repeated pleas, Zheng Kaiyan had the mentality of fulfilling his wishes. That was why she found Hu Tian and met Lin Fan a few days ago. Who would have thought that in just a few days, Lin Fan would write the principles of human islet recovery medicine and successfully publish it on Nature? Lin Fan even wrote her and Professor Wu Tian's names as the second authors. If the data from the principles of human islet recovery medicine were used to develop the hormone recovery medicine, it would be possible for patients to be cured completely. This was definitely a thesis worthy of winning the Nobel Prize. Her name had appeared as the second author of the Nobel Prize-level thesis. When Zheng Kaiyan thought of this, she was so excited that her face turned red. Lin Fan waved his hand and said, "If you hadn't let me watch that experiment, I wouldn't have been able to write this thesis, so it's normal for me to write your names." Lin Fan was definitely not spouting nonsense. After all, watching the biology experiment was one of the conditions to complete the mission. "You're too humble," Wu Tian said. "Even if you hadn't watched the experiment, you would have still gotten inspiration from somewhere." Obviously, he thought that Lin Fan had been inspired by the experiment, which helped him write the thesis. When solving some difficult problems, some people would suddenly have a flash of inspiration when they were eating, talking, or seeing something. Thus, they could easily solve difficult problems. Such examples were not rare. It was Counselor Sun Yaodong. "Lin Fan, that's great, so you're in school," Sun Yaodong said happily after seeing Lin Fan. He walked in front of Lin Fan and patted his shoulder. "Not bad, not bad. You published a paper in Science a while ago and now you've published a paper in Nature too. Back then I graduated too early, otherwise I would have done the same." When Sun Yaodong said this, his face faintly revealed a touch of aftertaste and regret. It was as if he could publish a paper in Nature and Science if he hadn't graduated so soon. Professor Wu Tian could not help but cough. Only then did Sun Yaodong notice that Wu Tian and Zheng Kaiyan were also in the classroom. He could not help but say awkwardly, Lin Fan, Chancellor Shen Liang wants to invite you to his office." Lin Fan said, "All right, I'll go over now." As he spoke, he walked out. After Lin Fan left, Wu Tian, Zheng Kaiyan, and Sun Yaodong did not have any intention of staying in the classroom. Instantly, the entire classroom was filled with heated discussions. F***CK, Brother Lin Fan is too awesome. Brother Lin Fan. Excuse me, where can I get a copy of Nature?
Eh?
Lin Fan was completely unaware of the reactions of the students in the classroom. At this moment, he had already arrived outside the Chancellor's office. He raised his hand and gently knocked on the door a few times. Soon a deep voice sounded from inside, "Please come in." When Lin Fan heard that, he pushed open the door. At this moment there were two people sitting in the office. One of them was Chancellor Shen Liang. The other person was someone whom Lin Fan had interacted with before, the director of the Academy of Sciences, Feng Yuxiang. "Lin Fan, you're here, sit down," Shen Liang said with a smile. As he spoke, he even personally poured a cup of tea for Lin Fan. Shen Liang was the chancellor of Jiangbei University. In terms of rank, he was not inferior to the leaders of Jiangbei University. Now, however, he was personally pouring tea for Lin Fan. One could imagine how high Lin Fan's position was in Shen Liang's heart. "Hello, Lin Fan, do you still remember me?" Feng Yuxiang said. "Hello, Director Feng," Lin Fan nodded. "It's great that you remember me. I don't like to beat about the bush, so I'll be straightforward." "Actually, I came from Jingbei today to look for you," Feng Yuxiang said. "I heard that you published a paper in Nature called Principles of Human Islet Recovery Medicine." Lin Fan looked at Feng Yuxiang in surprise. This news spread really fast. Then he nodded. "Then are you confident in developing a drug to treat diabetes?" Feng Yuxiang asked directly. After saying this, he held his breath and pricked up his ears. His eyes stared at Lin Fan without blinking. It was because this matter was too important. "You want to develop a medicine to treat diabetes?" Lin Fan asked. "Yes," Feng Yuxiang said. "I've already done it," Lin Fan said.
Whoosh.
Feng Yuxiang stood up abruptly and said in a trembling voice, You mean you've already invented it?" "Yes," Lin Fan said. Then he took out the human islet recovery medicine from his pocket. Feng Yuxiang said, This is. This is the human islet recovery medicine. It can be used to treat diabetic patients," Lin Fan said. Although Feng Yuxiang had already guessed it, he was still extremely excited after getting Lin Fan's confirmation. He said excitedly, Good, 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 haha. After a while, Feng Yuxiang suppressed the excitement in his heart and asked, "Can I take this with me?" "No problem," Lin Fan said. Feng Yuxiang held the medicine tightly in his arms as if he were holding a peerless treasure, afraid that it would fall to the ground and shatter. "There's one more thing, Lin Fan, can I ask you for a favor? Can you try to let a Hua Nation company be the main sales channel for this human islet recovery medicine?" Feng Yuxiang said. "Of course, you can also register your own company for sales. I also know that this may be a little difficult for you, but the country will give you some convenience and compensation." The pharmaceutical companies in Hua Nation could only be considered above average internationally. As a result, many drugs were often snatched by foreign countries. If Lin Fan was able to let a Hua Nation company be in charge of the human islet recovery medicine, then it was definitely good news for the medical industry in Hua Nation. However, Lin Fan might lose some benefits. This was because once this drug appeared, countless foreign pharmaceutical giants would definitely pay a sky-high price to buy the agency rights. Lin Fan naturally understood what Feng Yuxiang meant. A sky-high price. 10 billion. 100 billion. Sorry, he really did not lack it. Hence, Lin Fan said, "Forget it. If I register my own company, that'll be too troublesome. As for letting a Hua Nation company take charge of the medicine." Suddenly, Lin Fan thought of Liu Yuhang, who had called him yesterday. Did Liu Yuhang and son Lu Guo not own pharmaceutical companies? Thinking of this, Lin Fan continued, "I've already thought of some Hua Nation companies that I can work with." Feng Yuxiang stood up, bent over, and said in an extremely solemn tone, "Thank you, Lin Fan." This thank you was for Lin Fan giving up his interests for the sake of the country. At the same time, he was also thanking Lin Fan on behalf of the millions of people with diabetes in Hua Nation. Feng Yuxiang did not stay at Jiangbei University for long. He took the human islet recovery medicine and took the fastest flight to Jingbei. After arriving in Jingbei, he rushed to the Academy of Sciences. Along the way, some experts and academicians greeted him. In the past, Feng Yuxiang would return their greetings one by one. However, today it was as if he did not hear them. He simply walked over with large strides. When he arrived at the Medical Research Institute, Feng Yuxiang called out, "Academician Wang, Academician Li, I just got this from Lin Fan. Quickly test it and see if it has any effect on diabetes." Academician Wang's expression changed. He said in disbelief, "Director Feng, you mean Lin Fan has already developed it?" "Yes," Feng Yuxiang nodded vigorously. "Quick, let me see," Academician Li said. Then academician Wang and academician Li held the bottle of transparent solution and carefully studied it. 5 hours passed. Rat A's blood sugar and hormone levels have stabilized. Rat B's blood sugar and hormone levels have stabilized. Rat C's blood sugar and plasma level are stable. Rat D's blood sugar and plasma level have stabilized.
Wait.
12 hours passed. Rat A's blood sugar and hormone levels are stable. Rat B's blood sugar and hormone levels are stable. Rat C's blood sugar and hormone levels are stable. Rat D's blood sugar and hormone levels are stable.
Wait.
24 hours passed. Rat A's blood sugar and hormone levels are stable. Rat B's blood sugar and hormone levels are stable. Rat C's blood sugar and hormone levels are stable. Rat D's blood sugar and hormone levels are stable.
Wait.
The white mice were all specially fed and thus suffered from severe diabetes. Under normal circumstances, not to mention 24 hours, even after 5 hours, the body's hormones and blood sugar would definitely be abnormal. Now, after 24 hours, everything was still normal. This was enough to prove that the human islet recovery medicine had a healing effect. Academician Wang and academician Li were stunned when they heard the results. They had thought that the human islet recovery medicine might have a certain effect. However, they had never thought that the effect would be so obvious. Seeing that the two of them were silent, Feng Yuxiang could not help but ask, "How is it?" "It's a success," academician Li said. "Ha ha ha, great, that's great," Feng Yuxiang said excitedly.
Wait.
In Jiangbei City there were green grass and trees by the lake. There was an open space of nearly 2,000 square meters. The Liu family's villa was located here. Liu Sifeng, who had a head full of flowery hair, was reading the nature journal in his hand seriously with his presbyopic glasses. After a long while he sighed. "In the past, I always thought that my medical skills were not bad. In the end, let alone curing diabetes, I can't understand even when I'm reading an article on the treatment of diabetes. I really have to admit that I'm old." Liu Yi, who was wearing gold-rimmed glasses, said, "This article is written using Western medicine terms. It's not your fault." Liu Sifeng shook his head noncommittally. Liu Chuang, who had a full beard, said, "Old master, what you meant just now was the medicine for diabetes has been successfully developed." Liu Sifeng said, "I consulted some people today. It should be, the name seems to be human islet recovery medicine. I'm afraid that all the large pharmaceutical companies in the country and abroad will fight for this medicine," Liu Chuang said. "Yes, according to the information I received, Gray Rui, Qiang De, Yunbei Beiyao, Sheng Shengtang, and many other top pharmaceutical companies have already prepared a large number of funds to get the sales rights in one go," Liu Sifeng said. The entire hall fell into a short silence. All of them revealed a look of desire and helplessness. At this moment, hurried footsteps sounded from outside. "Dad, Grandpa, Uncle," Liu Yuheng called out, "do you know about the human islet recovery medicine?" Oh, Liu Sifeng could not help but laugh. Since when did my Yuheng pay so much attention to medical news? Not bad, not bad. As he spoke, he picked up the teacup and prepared to take a few sips. Liu Yuheng said, "This is the medicine that Brother Lin Fan invented. He said that he wants our family and the Sun family to sell it together."
Yeah.
Liu Si spat out the tea in his mouth. Then he, Liu Chuang, and Liu Yi stood up from their seats. Their eyes were wide open and their faces were filled with disbelief.
Wait.
The Imperial Hotel VIP room. Liu Sifeng, Liu Yi, Liu Chuang, Liu Yuheng, and the other core members of the Liu family, as well as Sun An, Sun Qingquan, Sun Luguo, and the other core members of the Sun family, were all gathered together. They chatted with each other from time to time, and the atmosphere was extremely harmonious. If there were other senior executives of pharmaceutical companies in Jiang province present, they would definitely be so shocked that their jaws would drop to the ground after seeing this scene. One had to know. People of the same trade were enemies. Liu Medical Company and Sun Medical Company were both first-class pharmaceutical companies in Jiang province. Due to this, the two families had always been like fire and water, constantly competing for the market. It was already good enough that the Liu and Sun families did not fight. How could they ever have a meal together? 349 Success Cooperation Plan 2. This was also the reason why Sun Luguo and Liu Yuheng often quarreled. However, what was the situation now? Ordinary people naturally did not know that the reason why such a thing happened was because of a young man, Lin Fan. At this moment, a series of footsteps sounded not far away. As the door to the private room was pushed open, a tall and handsome young man appeared in everyone's field of vision. It was Lin Fan. Brother Lin Fan, Liu Yuheng and Sun Luguo shouted at the same time. At the same time, Liu Sifeng, Liu Yi Sun and Sun Qingquan. And the others all stood up. Mr. Lin, welcome, please take a seat. As for where he sat, Lin Fan did not have many requirements. After all, no matter where he sat, they were just eating normally. Therefore, he did not decline too much and directly sat in the main seat. Liu Sifeng said, Mr. Lin, Yuheng often mentions you in front of us. You have superb driving skills and excellent chess skills. In just 3 days, you achieved a staggering 400% profit in a god-level operation in the stock market. As Liu Sifeng said this, his wrinkled old face was filled with admiration. After a while he praised, you're indeed extraordinary after seeing you today. He was not exaggerating. Ever since Lin Fan walked into the room, Liu Sifeng had been observing him silently. Ordinary young people would definitely feel uneasy in front of them. However, Lin Fan remained calm and collected. Just this temperament alone was not something ordinary people could compare to. Sun En said, I'm not very good at car racing or finance, but I like chess. Mr. Lin, how about we play a few rounds in the future? Lin Fan said, of course. All right, Sun En said happily. Exquisite dishes were served by the waiters. The general manager of the Imperial Hotel, Wang Fengyi, was holding a bottle of 2003 Lafite. Just as he was about to say something, he suddenly saw Lin Fan, who was sitting in the main seat. He could not help but say in surprise, Mr. Lin. Lin Fan smiled and nodded at him. For Wang Fengyi to become the general manager of the Imperial Hotel in Jiangbei, in other words, all the big shots and powers in Jiang province had a certain level of understanding of the situation. Among them, Sun Medical Company and Liu Medical Company were very important in Jiangbei and even the entire Jiang province. Wang Fengyi naturally knew about them. When he found out that Sun Medical Company and Liu Medical Company, which had always been opposing each other, had gathered together to treat someone to a meal, it really surprised Wang Fengyi. However, after seeing Lin Fan, Wang Fengyi had a look of realization. To Wang Fengyi, no matter how unbelievable it was, as long as Lin Fan was involved, it was nothing. He suddenly understood, but Sun and Liu Sifeng and the others were somewhat puzzled. The general manager of the Imperial Hotel seemed to be very familiar with Lin Fan. Manager Wang, you also know Mr. Lin? Liu Sifeng could not help but ask. Wang Fengyi was a little hesitant about whether he should tell the truth. That was because he did not know if Lin Fan wanted the people in the room to know his identity. Lin Fan naturally understood Wang Fengyi's concerns. He could not help but laugh. I'm the owner of the Imperial Hotel.
Yes.
Everyone in the room gasped. One had to know. The Imperial Hotel was a landmark building in Jiangbei, and its overall cost was more than 10 billion yuan. He owned a billion-dollar hotel. Lin Fan was just a young man in his 20s. How incredible was this? However, how could they have known that the Imperial Hotel was merely one of Lin Fan's many businesses? The Sun family and Liu family had only thought of Lin Fan as a genius researcher. At this moment they felt that Lin Fan was tall and mysterious. As the dishes were placed on the table one after another, Liu Sifeng raised his wine glass and said, Today, I'm very happy to be able to invite Mr. Lin for a meal. I propose that we all raise our glasses to Mr. Lin. To Mr. Lin. Everyone present raised their glasses and drank the wine in their glasses. As the wine went down their throats, the atmosphere became even more intense. During this period of time, Luguo has grown a lot under your influence. Mr. Lin, thank you, Sun En said. After saying that, he raised his glass again. Lin Fan smiled. How did I affect anything? I'm friends with Sun Luguo and Liu Yuheng. Old master, you don't have to be so polite to me. You don't have to call me Mr. Lin either, just call me Lin Fan. Alright, haha, Sun and Liu Sifeng said happily.
Eh?
In this banquet, Lin Fan was undoubtedly the main character. There were countless people toasting and chatting with him. Finally, Liu Sifeng felt that it was about time, so he told him the purpose of the banquet. Lin Fan, I heard from Yu Hang and Luguo that you've developed a human islet recovery medicine and want to hand it over to Liu Medical Group and Sun Medical Group to sell. Everyone pricked up their ears when they heard this. This matter was of great importance to them. If they could really become an agent, then Sun Medical Company and Liu Medical Company might become famous pharmaceutical companies in the country or even the world. This was definitely an opportunity to reach the heavens in a single step. Lin Fan said casually, yes. Instantly, everyone in the private room began to breathe rapidly. It was true. It was true. Then Sun En asked, I wonder if you have a plan to act as an agent. Lin Fan said, no, it's too troublesome to prepare for that. Do you have a plan? This was the truth. If he was not afraid of trouble, Lin Fan could have started his own pharmaceutical company to sell the medicine. Sun En and Liu Sifeng looked at each other. After a while, Sun En said, in fact, we have a preliminary plan. I'll tell you about it first. If you're not satisfied with anything, you can propose changes. All right, said Lin Fan. Sun Medical Company and Liu Medical Company will provide the production plant for the human islet recovery medicine. We'll also be in charge of the advertising, sales, and so on. We'll take a total of 40% of the profits. Lin Fan, you don't have to do anything and you can directly have 60% of the profits of the human islet recovery medicine. We will send you all the sales data regularly. You can check it at any time, Sun En said. There was no cost and no risk. 60% of the profits would be directly obtained from the technology. Overall, it was a very sincere plan. Thus Lin Fan said sure. Originally, Liu Sifeng and Sun En thought that Lin Fan would think for a long time after hearing the proposal. Perhaps he would even ask for a few more percentage points. However, they did not expect Lin Fan to say yes so easily. He agreed. This did he not even think about it. Sun En and Liu Sifeng had experienced many things. At this moment, however, they could not help but be stunned. Sun En swallowed his saliva and said, Lin Fan, you mean? What you said just now is fine, Lin Fan said. In fact, Lin Fan knew that even if he asked for a few more points, it would not be a problem. However, there was no need. It was just a few points. Lin Fan did not take it to heart at all. As long as he did not have to trouble himself, it was fine. As for the finances, it did not matter even if the Sun and Liu families did not send the data and reports over. Lin Fan had the super smart watch Lil White. He could easily find out about the situation. After getting Lin Fan's confirmation, Sun En and Liu Sifeng still felt that it was not real. The human islet recovery medicine that was enough to make Sun Medical Company and Liu Medical Company soar to the sky was in this man's hands. Liu Yuheng said, Brother Lin Fan, please don't give the Liu and Sun families any benefits just because of me and Sun Luguo. Yeah, Brother Lin Fan, there's no need, Sun Luguo followed. Lin Fan smiled, don't worry, I know what to do. Thank you, Brother Lin Fan, Sun Luguo and Liu Yuheng said sincerely. They understood what kind of benefits Lin Fan had brought them. Lin Fan smiled, what are you thanking me for? It's just a small matter. Suddenly, a crisp notification rang out in Lin Fan's mind. Ding, you've completed the hidden mission Brotherhood. You've received 2 golden packets. Lin Fan was stunned. Brotherhood. This, it should be Sun Luguo and Liu Yuheng. In other words, not only could he obtain 60% of the profits of the human islet recovery medicine, but he even got 2 golden packets. This banquet was not bad. Now the cooperation was successful, and he had even received 2 golden packets. Everyone from the Sun family and the Liu family as well as Lin Fan were in a good mood. The atmosphere of the banquet became even more lively. When Lin Fan returned to the coiling dragon villa, it was already 2 hours later. He sat on the soft sofa and played with his phone for a while. After a while, he turned his attention to the golden packets. "Let's see what I can get," Lin Fan muttered. "Opened. Ding, congratulations, you've received 800,000 yuan. Ding, congratulations, you've received a constitution enhancement potion." Seeing this, Lin Fan's eyes lit up. Not long ago, he had obtained a bottle of constitution enhancement potion. After drinking it, his strength, speed, and other aspects had obviously increased greatly. This was definitely something good. He did not expect to obtain another bottle so quickly. When Lin Fan raised his head, he saw a bottle of transparent liquid on the coffee table. It was the Constitution Enhancement Potion that he had just obtained. Without any hesitation, Lin Fan downed it. Similar to the last time, it was as if a warm current had flowed through his heart. At the same time, his entire body was filled with endless power. Lin Fan jumped up lightly. His entire body seemed to have lost all gravity as he flew toward the ceiling. Luckily, Lin Fan reacted quickly and blocked it with his hand. Otherwise, his head would have made contact with the ceiling. One had to know. The height of the coiling dragon villa was more than 5 meters. In other words, Lin Fan easily jumped over 5 meters. Then Lin Fan looked at the dartboard hanging on the wall and took out a dart. With the 100% hidden weapon skill and his current strength, the dart instantly passed through the bullseye and completely sank into the wall. Simply terrifying. Even Lin Fan was stunned. Am I that strong now?
Eh?
While Lin Fan was in a daze, in the female dormitory of Jiangbei University, Zhao Nai took a bottle of iced Coke and strode in. She saw Xia Bing and Xia Zhu reading on the table. Studying again. In fact, she was just asking casually. However, in the next moment, Zhao Nai's tone changed slightly as she said in surprise, "Huh, this is bio, medicine, when did you start researching this?" One had to know. During this period of time, Xia Bing and Xia Zhu, the two computer geniuses, had been studying chemistry hard every day. This already made Zhao Nai very puzzled. It took her a long time to slowly accept this. Now they had changed their focus to biomedicine. Xia Bing and Xia Zhu nodded gently and said softly, "Yes, that's right." Zhao Nai looked at it for a while before rubbing her head. "After learning computer science, you learned chemistry. Now it's biology. Is this the world of top students?" She shook her head and walked toward the bathroom. Xia Bing and Xia Zhu slowly turned their attention to the paper in Nature titled Principles of Human Islet Recovery Medicine. After that, they focused even more on biomedicine.
Eh?
In the blink of an eye, it was the weekend. Today, the sun was shining brightly, and there was a gentle breeze. Lin Fan drove the Cullinan toward Qing City. Back then, when Lin Fan was still at work, no matter how busy he would take the time to visit his parents and sister. Now that he was just at school, he had to go home more often. About an hour later, he arrived at the front of 4th Street. Lin Fan had just parked his car when he heard Lin Xiaoyao's crisp voice not far away. "Brother!" Then Lin Xiaoyao jogged and pounced on him. Lin Fan said, "You've gotten lighter again, your face has become smaller, it's full of bones when I pinch it, hurry up and eat more." "Brother," Lin Xiaoyao said angrily. Lin Tao, who was beside them, smiled. "All right, go in, your mother should have prepared dinner." Sure enough, just as he said, the meal was ready. Shredded pork with green pepper, chicken soup, glutinous rice fish, hot and sour shredded potatoes, sweet and sour pork ribs, cucumber ham, tomato scrambled eggs, 6 dishes and a soup filled the table. The appearance, fragrance, and taste were all perfect, making one's appetite rise. The family sat around the table. The atmosphere was warm and comfortable. Everyone was very satisfied. After a full meal, the family sat in front of the television, eating melon seeds and chatting. "When I went to pick Lil Yao up from school, I saw 2 kids from her school dating. I was sure to criticize them," Lin Tao said. "Lil Yao, you can't date in school," Dai Weixu immediately said. "I won't fall in love, those little boys in school are too childish," Lin Xiaoyao said. "Lil Yao can't date but you can Lil Fan," Lin Tao nodded. "That's right, Lil Fan, you should get a girlfriend when you have time, don't just focus on your studies. There are fewer and fewer women nowadays. If you don't find one now, you might not be able to find one in the future," Dai Weixu followed up with a look of anticipation. Lin Xiaoyao said, Dad, Mom, I think there's no need to worry about brother dadding. He might even have a few girlfriends already. She knew that Lin Fan owned a lot of villas and sports cars. He had a big house full of Gucci items and was a major shareholder of Cha Yue. In addition, Lin Fan was tall and handsome. How could he not get a girlfriend? Not to mention other things, her two female classmates were in love with Lin Fan. Cough, cough, cough. When Lin Fan heard Lin Xiaoyao's words, he almost choked. Dai Weixu's eyes lit up as she asked, Really, Lil Fan, when are you going to bring your girlfriend back for us to see? Lin Tao, who had been sipping his tea, put down his cup and looked at Lin Fan. Lin Fan was being stared at by his parents, so he could only bite the bullet and say, I'll look for another chance. What should he do? Who should he bring back? Jin Yuxuan? Qiu Ziqian? Hu Tian?
They.
He could not bring them all back, right? All right, haha, Lin Tao said happily. Dai Weixu asked, Do you have a photo of your girlfriend? I didn't take any photos with my phone, Lin Fan said. Lin Fan was not lying. He really had not used his phone to take any photos. Of course, even if he had, Lin Fan would not show them any photos for the time being. At this moment, Lin Xiaoyao seemed to have thought of something and said in a timid tone, Brother, if your girlfriend finds out that you just drank the Coke I bought, she won't scold me, right? Your girlfriend won't hit me if she knows that I jumped into your arms, right? Brother, if your girlfriend is so scary, my heart will only ache for you. After saying that, she even pretended to be trembling. Dai Weixu said, You have to be careful in case Lil Fan's girlfriend gets the wrong idea in the future. You do have to be careful, Lin Tao added. Lin Fan smiled. Dad, Mom, don't listen to Lil Yao's nonsense. She learned this joke from the internet. Lin Xiaoyao was now in her third year of high school and her schedule was very tight. She only had a short half-day off every week. After dinner, Lin Fan drove Lin Xiaoyao to Jiangbei High School. Lin Xiaoyao looked at the dazzling starry sky above and touched the comfortable and soft seat. Her pretty face was filled with enjoyment. Brother, your girlfriend won't be angry that I'm sitting in your passenger seat, will she? She asked. Brother, Lin Fan smiled and interrupted, She won't be angry, otherwise your heart will ache, right? Of course, Lin Xiaoyao hugged Lin Fan's strong arm. After sending Lin Xiaoyao to the school gate, Lin Fan returned home. The night gradually deepened. Lin Fan lay on the big bed that was filled with the smell of sunlight. He slept very comfortably and soundly. The next day, when Lin Fan opened his eyes, the sun was already hanging in the sky. His parents left the house early as usual. After Lin Fan washed up, he went to a stall not far away and ate a bowl of wontons. Then he strolled along the winding road. Humans were such strange creatures. If he always lived in the same place, perhaps he would not have any thoughts of wandering around at all. Once he returned from other places, he would have an inexplicable urge to look around. Lin Fan looked at the tall buildings, the roads that were being repaired, and the laughing students. He felt extremely relaxed. When a slightly hunched figure appeared in front of him, Lin Fan could not help but shout, Uncle Zhu. The middle-aged man with slightly white sideburns said hesitantly, Are you, Lil Fan? It's me, Lin Fan said happily. Back then, when Lin Fan was in his first year of high school, there were limited dorms and Lin Fan's house was quite far from the school. Therefore, he chose to rent a room nearby, which was a room in Zhu Baigu's house. At that time, Zhu Baigu treated Lin Fan very well. Whenever he saw Lin Fan stay up late to study, he would often send him some porridge or noodles. Zhu Baigu's aged face was full of wrinkles. He said happily, Lil Fan, it really is you. By the way, which university are you in? In the first year of high school, there were not enough dormitories, so the students could rent rooms outside. However, in the second year of high school, the school built a new dormitory. Other than the students who lived within 3 kilometers of the school, the rest of the students were forced to live on campus. Therefore, Lin Fan only stayed at Zhu Baigu's house for a year. Therefore, he did not know that Lin Fan had dropped out of school in his third year of high school. I'm studying at Jiangbei University, Lin Fan said. Zhongbei University? Haha, as expected, I knew you would definitely get into a good university, Zhu Beiguo said happily, the wrinkles on his face deepening. He looked even happier than when he heard that his son had been admitted to Zhongbei University. Lin Fan did not explain in detail that he did not get in. He was about to say something. At this moment, Zhu Beiguo seemed to be too happy that he could not breathe. His face was pale and he lost the strength to stand upright. He fell to the ground. Fortunately, Lin Fan reacted quickly and grabbed Zhu Beiguo's arms. He asked, "Uncle Zhu, are you all right?" However, Zhu Beiguo only panted heavily. His whole body was covered in a layer of cold sweat and his pupils kept rolling. He could not answer at all. Seeing this, Lin Fan did not hesitate at all. He spent 10 million yuan to buy medical water from the system and poured it into Zhu Beiguo's mouth.
Gulp.
Zhu Beiguo's condition quickly improved after drinking the medicine. His breathing gradually stabilized and his complexion returned to normal. After a while he asked in disbelief, "I think I'm fine." Over the past few years, Zhu Beiguo had been worried and anxious because of his business. As a result, he suffered from heart pain, high blood pressure, and other diseases. Therefore, he often looked tired and dispirited. Just now, it was as if these illnesses had suddenly disappeared. He felt extremely relaxed right now. "Lil Fan, what did you give me?" Zhu Beiguo could not help but ask. Lin Fan said, "A little medicine. Uncle Zhu, it's good that you're fine." At this moment, a series of footsteps suddenly sounded not far away. A middle-aged man with a beer belly slowly walked over from afar. Seeing this, Zhu Beiguo hurriedly went up to him and said, "President Liu, I've finally found you, President Liu." President Liu raised his head and pointed his nose at Zhu Beiguo. "Oh, old Zhu, what's the matter?" "President Liu, didn't I deliver 3 carts of pork and 2 carts of beef to you last year? The money you haven't paid yet," Zhu Beiguo said carefully. "It's just a few carts of meat, isn't it?" President Liu glanced at him and snorted. "You're even blocking me on the street. Are you worried that I won't give you the money?" No, I definitely didn't mean that," Zhu Beiguo hurriedly said. "It's just that I've been in urgent need of some cash recently and I happened to meet you, so I came to ask." This was a strange era. Those who owed money were always more arrogant than those who borrowed money. "I'm working on a big project now and don't have time to deal with this small amount of money. When my project is completed, I'll settle the bill with you." Without waiting for Zhu Beiguo's reply, he turned around and prepared to leave. "President Liu, I really need this money right now. Can't you think of a way?" Zhu Beiguo quickly shouted. President Liu grunted and said impatiently, all right, you want money, right? I'll call you when I get back. I can't believe you're nagging so much over money." Then he prepared to walk forward again. At this moment, a tall and handsome figure suddenly blocked in front of him. It was Lin Fan. "You want to leave? All right, you just have to pay Uncle Zhu the money you owe him right now," Lin Fan said. From President Liu's eyes, Lin Fan could easily tell that he was just being perfunctory. There was no way he would transfer the money to Uncle Zhu right away. A few carts of meat would only cost a few 100,000 at most. It would not be a big deal even if Lin Fan gave that money to Uncle Zhu. However, it was only right and proper to repay debts. President Liu raised his eyebrows and shouted, "What's wrong, old Zhu? Are you worried that I won't pay, so you found a young man to fight me?" Zhu Beiguo was about to explain when Lin Fan said, "Uncle Zhu, leave it to me." Zhu Beiguo saw a calm and collected look on Lin Fan's face that was different from ordinary young people. He could not help but nod. "Soft tactics didn't work, so you want to use force," President Liu said. "Old Zhu, you're really bold." Then he said coldly to Lin Fan, "Brat, get out of my way, otherwise the consequences are definitely not something you can bear." Lin Fan's expression did not change. He said calmly, "Is that so? I want to see what the consequences are." 352 Apologize. Introduction. When President Liu heard this, his eyes narrowed slightly. Just as he was about to say something, his gaze was suddenly attracted by a young man in a checkered shirt. President Liu changed his arrogant appearance from before. He lowered his head like a pug and respectfully called out, "Hello, young Master Wu." Originally, young Master Wu did not pay attention to them. However, when he heard someone calling him, he still turned around politely. When he saw President Liu, young Master Wu's expression did not change much. However, in the next moment, his pupils suddenly constricted. Then he quickened his pace and walked forward. It was because he saw Lin Fan. Young Master Wu was the groom of the wedding held at Ching Kun Hotel on the eve of the Spring Festival, Wu Kai. He would never forget how respectful and fawning all the big shots were toward Lin Fan. At the same time, he could not forget that Lin Fan was a major shareholder of Ching Kun Group, a major shareholder of Xiao Wu Wholesale City and the owner of the Imperial Hotel. Ever since the wedding, Wu Kai had been fantasizing about when he would be able to chat with Lin Fan and build a relationship with him. Unfortunately, he had never had such an opportunity. Wu Kai did not expect that he would encounter it today.
Eh.
President Liu, who had a beer belly, saw young Master Wu walking toward him. His fat face revealed a hint of surprise. One had to know. Young Master Wu's father was a big shot in Qing City. If he had a relationship with him, it would definitely be a great thing for him. President Liu saw that Wu Kai was getting closer and closer, so he quickly flattered, "Young Master Wu, you." However, before he could finish, Wu Kai said in a very respectful tone, "Mr. Lin, long time no see." Lin Fan had a photographic memory, so he naturally remembered the groom from the wedding banquet. At this moment, Lin Fan was in a bad mood. Wu Kai saw that Lin Fan did not reply. His eyes moved slightly and his gaze landed on President Liu, who was beside him. He had a vague impression of President Liu. After thinking about it carefully, he seemed to remember this man. Wu Kai then remembered that the other party had toasted him when he went to a hotel for dinner once. His surname seemed to be Liu. "Mr. Lin, do you know Mr. Liu?" Lin Fan glanced at President Liu and said, "Yeah, I know him. He owes Uncle Zhu money for a few carts of meat. He even threatened to teach me a lesson." Initially, Wu Kai thought that Lin Fan and President Liu were close. He could use this to build a connection and get closer to Lin Fan. However, what was the situation now? This Liu guy actually dared to owe Lin Fan's uncle money and even threatened him. Threatening a major shareholder of Ching Kun Group. Threatening the major shareholder of Xiao Wu Wholesale City. Threatening the owner of the Imperial Hotel. How dare he? More importantly, his words just now actually showed that he seemed to be somewhat familiar with this Liu fellow. Thinking of this, Wu Kai's expression darkened as he shouted sternly, "Liu, you really have guts." President Liu stuttered, "Why, young Master Wui?" Wu Kai saw that he wanted to explain to him instead of apologizing to Lin Fan immediately. A wave of anger rose in his heart. At the same time, in order to cut ties with President Liu as soon as possible, he kicked him to the ground. "F***CK," he shouted.
Plug.
This kick finally woke President Liu up. "Mr. Lin, I'm sorry, I didn't recognize you. I looked down on others, I'm sorry." However, no matter how much President Liu cried and apologized, Lin Fan's expression remained the same. There was no change at all. Then, President Liu crawled a few steps forward and said, old Zhu, I'm sorry, I'm a bastard. I shouldn't have owed you money for the meat. I'll send the money to you right away. What's your account number? I'll transfer the money to you now." President Liu kept kowtowing, then hugged Zhu Baiguo's pants and wailed. Zhu Baiguo had no choice but to take out his bank card. President Liu held the bank card as if he was holding a life buoy. He quickly took out his phone and entered a string of numbers. Holding onto a life buoy. In fact, there was nothing wrong with this. That was because President Liu knew very well how terrifying Wu Kai's power was. If Wu Kai wanted to push him into a dead end, it would not take much effort at all. As for Mr. Lin, who even Wu Kai had to treat respectfully. What kind of power did he have? Yet he actually threatened him. Just thinking about it made President Liu feel a wave of fear in his heart, and his face turned pale. At this moment he was filled with regret. Why did he owe the money for the meat? In less than a minute, Zhu Baiguo's phone vibrated. Notice from Hua Nation Construction Bank, 1 million yuan was deposited into your account. When Zhu Beigyu saw the text message, he was slightly stunned and said, A million, you only owe me 389,200 yuan, Mr. Liu, you gave me too much. It's not too much, President Liu hurriedly said. Seeing that Zhu Beigyu still wanted to say something, Lin Fan said, Uncle Zhu, just take it. He has owed you money for the meat for so long, take it as interest. Yes, it's interest, President Liu added. Zhu Beigyu opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something. In the end, he did not speak. When President Liu saw this, he heaved a sigh of relief. Then he looked at Lin Fan carefully. Lin Fan said calmly, I don't want something like this to happen again, do you understand? President Liu said excitedly, I understand, I understand. Get lost, Lin Fan said. Yes, yes, thank you, Mr. Lin, thank you, old Zhu, thank you, young Master Wu. After President Liu finished speaking, he quickly ran into the distance. After he left, the scene became much quieter. Uncle Zhu, how many carts of meat did you send to President Liu? Lin Fan asked. Are you in the meat business now? Zhu Beigyu was still a little confused. However, he still answered, yes. At this moment, hurried footsteps sounded not far away. Mr. Lin, the chairman of Qing Kun, Li Wanian, who was dressed in a suit, called out respectfully. Lin Fan said, you came at the right time. My uncle Zhu is in the meat business. The hotel, supermarkets, and other businesses in Qing Kun should also need pork and beef, right? In the future you can source them from my uncle Zhu. Li Wanian did not understand what had just happened. However, since Lin Fan had opened his mouth, there was no problem at all. Li Wanian took the initiative to extend his hand to Zhu Beigyu. Mr. Zhu will have to rely on you in the future. The pork and beef of Qing Kun Group would be provided by him. Zhu Beigyu's mind was in a daze again. However, he still reached out and shook Li Wanian's hand out of reflex. Lin Fan introduced, Uncle Zhu, this is the chairman of Qing Kun Group, Li Wanian. If you need anything in the future, just look for him. What? Zhu Beigyu widened his eyes in shock. Earlier, Zhu Beigyu saw that President Liu was trying his best to please young Master Wu. As for young Master Wu, when he was treating Lin Fan with the utmost respect, Zhu Beigyu was a little puzzled. Now even the chairman of Qing Kun Group was so polite to Lin Fan. One had to know. Qing Kun Group was the largest company in Qing City, and it had a wide range of businesses including supermarkets, hotels, daily necessities, real estate, clothing, and so on. In fact, because of Lin Fan's words, the chairman of Qing Kun Group even shook his hand and let him become the main vendor of the company's pork and beef. This was Lin Fan not from an ordinary family. Lin Fan's learning ability was very strong, but he only graduated less than 2 years ago, right? How could young Master Wu and the chairman of Qing Kun Group treat him like this? What was going on? Could it be that he had not woken up yet? Naturally, Lin Fan did not know what Zhu Beigyu was thinking. He was already attracted by a sentence that suddenly sounded in his mind. Ding, you've completed a hidden mission. A drop of water will be repaid with a spring. You have received 1 golden packet. A drop of water will be repaid with a spring. Was it about helping Uncle Zhu? 1 golden packet. This was a pleasant surprise. In reality, Lin Fan was not wrong. This was indeed the reward for helping Zhu Beigyu. Zhu Beigyu used to treat him to noodles and porridge sometimes. Now Lin Fan had first cured Zhu Beigyu. Then he helped him get 1 million yuan. Finally, he also got him to be Qing Kun Group's pork and beef supplier. If this was not repaying a drop of water with a spring, then what was? At this moment, Li Wanian said, it's almost time for dinner. Qing Kun Hotel is just ahead. Mr. Lin, Mr. Zhu, and Lil Wu, why don't we go for a meal together? Lin Fan nodded, sure. Wu Kai had always wanted to interact more with Lin Fan. Naturally, he would not disagree. Zhu Beigyu, who was still in a daze, followed behind them. When the waiters of Qing Kun Hotel saw Li Wanian, they greeted him respectfully. Hello, Chairman Li. After a wave of greetings, Lin Fan, Li Wanian, Wu Kai, and Zhu Beigyu arrived at a luxurious private room. Immediately after, dishes of delicious food, high-end white wine and so on were served. Li Wanian personally poured a glass of wine for everyone and then toasted with them. After drinking this glass of wine, the rich spiciness stimulated Zhu Baigu's throat, making him realize that all of this was not a dream. It was all true.
Eh?
After Lin Fan left Ching Kun Hotel, he went home and stayed with his parents for a while before driving toward Jiangbei. Although he felt that it was fine to stay at home for a few more days, his parents didn't think so. They felt that school was the most important thing. When the sky gradually darkened, Lin Fan had already returned to the coiling dragon villa. He sat on the soft sofa and played with his phone. When he opened his WeChat moments, he saw that Chu Yunyu had just forwarded a company article. Instantly, Lin Fan could not help but recall Chu Yunyu's pretty and serious face. Hence, he opened her chat box and sent her a message. Lin Fan, you haven't slept yet. Chu Yunyu seemed to be using her phone. She replied almost instantly. Chu Yunyu, yeah, I've been working overtime to process the information for the International Perfume Exhibition in Eagle Country. I've only just returned home. Lin Fan could almost imagine Chu Yunyu's tired face. Hence, he sent out a message. Lin Fan, you can hand it over to your subordinates. You don't have to tire yourself out. Chu Yunyu replied, I've already passed on many things, but this exhibition is very important. I have to go and be there personally, so I have to prepare some things myself. Lin Fan, you're going to Eagle Country personally, when? Chu Yunyu replied, the exhibition is on Thursday. I'm going there tomorrow. Lin Fan said, then I'll go with you. Chu Yunyu, really? Lin Fan replied, of course, have a good rest tonight, I'll pick you up tomorrow morning. Chu Yunyu replied, okay. The reason why Lin Fan decided to go to Eagle Country with Chu Yunyu was that he was worried. Firstly, it had been a long time since he last accompanied her. Secondly, he had never left the country. Taking this opportunity to go overseas to take a look seemed like a good idea. After ending his conversation with Chu Yunyu, Lin Fan focused his attention on the golden packet that he received today. One golden packet, let's see what I can get, Lin Fan muttered to himself. Opened. Ding, congratulations, you've received Sun Simeo's medical experience. Seeing this, Lin Fan was stunned. Sun Simeo. Was he not the famous godly doctor and king pharmacist in history? His experience. Just as Lin Fan was in a daze, in his mind suddenly countless complex and profound medical knowledge emerged. After a while, Lin Fan opened his eyes and muttered, I already have such superb medical skills. That night Lin Fan was sleeping soundly. When Lin Fan opened his eyes, the sky was already bright. He looked at his phone and saw a message. Notice from Merchant Bank, 7,589,020 yuan was deposited into your account. Sign in. Ding, congratulations, you've obtained Royal Hotel in Eagle Country. Seeing this, Lin Fan's face revealed a strange expression. He was just about to head to Eagle Country and he obtained a hotel in Eagle Country. Lil White, do you know about Royal Hotel in Eagle Country? Asked Lin Fan. The Royal Hotel in Eagle Country was built in 2002. It took 8 years to build and cost 3 billion Eagle dollars. Due to its tall and luxurious appearance, it became one of the iconic buildings of Eagle Country, Lil White said in a very clear voice. When Lin Fan heard this, the weird expression on his face grew even more intense. This hotel was actually in Eagle Country. Was this not too much of a coincidence? At this moment the phone in his pocket rang. He looked at the caller ID and saw that it was an unknown number from overseas. If it were an ordinary person, they would have been shocked to see an unfamiliar foreign phone call. Their first reaction was to hang up. However, Lin Fan had already received many foreign calls. Therefore, he did not hang up. Instead, he pressed the answer button. Hello, is this Mr. Lin? A very gentle and respectful voice came from the phone. Lin Fan said, it's me, you are. Hello, Mr. Lin, I'm Jack Smith, the chairman of Eagle Country's Royal Hotel. I hope I didn't disturb your rest. The voice on the phone became more respectful. Lin Fan said, no, I'm already up. Jack Smith heaved a sigh of relief. That's really great. Not long ago, Jack Smith suddenly learned that Eagle Country's Royal Hotel had changed owners. Moreover, it was a new boss from Hua Nation. This made Jack Smith unable to sleep. Therefore, when it was 9:30 a.m. in Hua Nation and 3:00 a.m. in Eagle Country, Jack Smith could not help but make a call. He wanted to talk to his new boss as soon as possible and build a relationship with him. Otherwise, he had worked hard for so many years to become the chairman of Eagle Country's Royal Hotel. Perhaps it would not be long before everything was ruined. Mr. Lin, I'm going to report to you about the hotel's situation in the first half of the year as well as the plans for the next year. Are you free? Jack Smith asked. Lin Fan said, forget it, I'll be flying to Eagle Country today. When Jack Smith heard this, his figure turned solemn and he hurriedly said, all right, I'll get ready to pick you up. Okay, Lin Fan said, oh right, aren't you from Eagle Country? Why do you speak Hua Nation's language so fluently? Jack Smith said, because there are many tourists from all over the world who come to our hotel. I used to receive tourists from all over the world, so I learned the languages of many countries. Lin Fan said, not bad. Although it was just a simple word of praise to Jack Smith, it sounded like a beautiful symphony. It was so pleasant that his entire face was filled with smiles. After breakfast, Lin Fan took his ID card, passport, and other documents before driving the Cullinan. Not long after, he pressed a doorbell. The door slowly opened. Chu Yunyu's beautiful face appeared in front of him. The two of them had not seen each other for a while. Now that they met, there was no need to say anything. They were like magnets that directly embraced each other. The sun continued to rise, and the trees swayed gently. About 3 hours later, Lin Fan and Chu Yunyu both changed into a new set of clothes and walked out of the room. Just as the two of them sat in the Cullinan, the phone in Chu Yunyu's pocket rang. I'm on my way. Chu Yunyu said a few simple words and hung up. Then she looked at the Cullinan's interior curiously and said, as expected of a Cullinan, be it material, comfort, or power, they're all top-notch. The space in the back row is also very large. It won't be a problem to lie down and sleep. Lin Fan said, really, why don't you sleep here next time? Chu Yunyu seemed to have thought of something and her face turned red. They chatted while driving and soon arrived at the airport. In the distance, an oval-faced woman in a dress kept waving and calling out, Director Chu, Mr. Lin, we're here. Chu Yunyu and Lin Fan walked forward together. Hello, Chairwoman Chu, Mr. Lin. Obviously, these people were all Flower Stem's employees. When Chu Yunyu was alone with Lin Fan, she was like a little girl who did not know anything. However, in front of the company's employees, she was like a cold CEO, extremely strict and imposing. The oval-faced woman asked, Chairwoman Chu, may I know which plane we're taking to Eagle Country? Yesterday, she was about to book a plane ticket when she suddenly received a call from Chu Yunyu. She said that the plane tickets were ready and they could go straight to the airport tomorrow. However, Chu Yunyu did not say which flight it was. Chu Yunyu did not answer her. Instead, she looked at Lin Fan. It was because she did not know which flight it was either. Yesterday, Lin Fan only told her that he had arranged the plane. Lin Fan said, the plane should be in front, let's go. Everyone did not ask much and followed Lin Fan. When they arrived in front of Zia Airlines shuttle, 3 beautiful air stewardesses bowed in unison and said, hello, Mr. Lin. The air stewardess standing at the front smiled and said, Mr. Lin, do you want to board the plane now or rest in the VIP lounge first? Yunyu, do you want to rest and eat something first? Lin Fan asked. Chu Yunyu shook her head. Let's just go straight to the plane, there should be food on the plane. Lin Fan nodded and said, all right, let's go to the plane. Thus, 3 air stewardesses led Lin Fan and the others to check their passports and identity documents. Then they strolled through the passage and took a Mercedes-Benz bus straight to the airplane. Seeing this, a few people could not help but discuss in low voices. Did you notice, I don't think we collected or checked our flight tickets, right? It seems so. Then how did we get in? The shuttle bus at the airport in the past was just an ordinary one, right? How did it switch to a Benz today? Amidst the crowd's discussion, the Mercedes-Benz bus stopped steadily in front of a luxury passenger plane. Lin Fan and the others had just gotten off the Mercedes-Benz bus, a group of tall, beautiful air stewardesses with exquisite facial features who scored above 85 points in appearance stood in 2 rows. They bowed at the same time. "Hello, Mr. Lin." This scene. The staff of Flower Stem as well as Chu Yunyu were stunned. Such a scene, let alone in reality, they had never seen it before even in TV shows. Following that, everyone could not help but look at Lin Fan. Lin Fan rubbed his nose and said, "Let's go, let's get on the plane." As soon as he finished speaking, he held Chu Yunyu's slender hand and walked past the 2 rows of beautiful air stewardesses. At this moment, Chu Yunyu suddenly had a strange feeling. It was as if she was wearing a snow-white wedding dress. Under the witness of her relatives and friends, she was holding hands with Lin Fan as they walked onto the stage. Chu Yunyu, who had always been calm and collected, blushed when she thought of this. Lin Fan asked, "You seem to be sweating, are you feeling hot?" Chu Yunyu stammered, "Yes, that's right." Lin Fan said, "Then let's go quickly, it'll be fine once we get on the plane." "Yes, yes," Chu Yunyu nodded vigorously. When everyone got on the plane, they saw that there was no one inside, and it seemed very spacious. As soon as everyone sat down, the beautiful air stewardesses who were standing in 2 rows earlier walked over. The air stewardess at the front smiled and asked, "Mr. Lin, are all the guests here?" Lin Fan did not reply. Instead, he looked at Chu Yunyu. Chu Yunyu looked at the people on the plane and said, "They're all here. Then I'll ask the captain to contact the control tower and prepare to head to Lun City, Eagle Country." "All right," Lin Fan said. "All right," the air stewardess, 355 surprised, bragging.
Rumbled.
As the luxury plane trembled, it suddenly shot up into the sky. After a while, they passed through layers of clouds and arrived in the blue sky. After the plane stabilized, a beautiful air stewardess pushed a small dining table and walked over with a smile on her face. "What's there to eat?" the oval-faced woman asked. "Australian lobster, bread crab, top-grade Wagyu beef, natural vegetables, top-grade abalone," the beautiful air stewardess said. The oval-faced woman was a little stunned when she heard the names of the dishes. After a while, the oval-faced woman said, Then I'll have a serving of lobster and beef." She did not dare to say that it was Australian lobster or top-grade Wagyu beef. It was because she felt that she might have been hearing things. If she mentioned Australian lobster and top-grade Wagyu, she might end up making a joke of herself. "All right," the beautiful air stewardess said with a smile. As she spoke, she placed the Australian lobster that reached the length of one's elbow and the top-grade Wagyu beef that was as white as snowflakes in front of the oval-faced woman. Seeing this, the oval-faced woman was completely stunned. It was true. This was really Australian lobster and top-grade Wagyu beef. She did not hear wrongly just now. However, what was going on? At this moment, the beautiful air stewardess asked again, "Do you need anything to drink?" "We have 2003 Lafayette Flying Maudai, Louis XIII, Hennessy, natural fruit juice, high-end coffee, high-protein milk, high-end yogurt, and so on." The oval-faced woman said, I want red wine." "All right," said the beautiful air stewardess. Then she handed it to the oval-faced woman. Lafayette. It really was Lafayette. The oval-faced woman was stunned again. In fact, she was not the only one who was stunned. The other employees of Flower Stem who were also on the plane were stunned too. They could be said to be the middle and upper management of the company. Perhaps some of them had never been abroad. However, they had all taken a plane before. Usually there would be some food prepared on the plane. However, most only served items like bread, beef brisket, shredded potatoes, and other very cheap food. Now, the food in front of them, not to mention the food, just this glass of 2003 Lafayette would probably cost hundreds or thousands of yuan, right? This meal would probably be more expensive than the plane ticket, right? Was the airline company earning that much money? At this moment, someone suddenly said, "It seems that there are only us on the plane, there are no other passengers." When everyone heard this, they looked around and realized that there was really no one else. They could not help but look at each other. Lin Fan turned around and asked, "What are you guys doing? Eat up." The oval-faced woman opened her mouth. She could not help but voice the doubts in her heart. Mr. Lin, did you book this plane?" "No, I didn't," Lin Fan replied. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. Lin Fan continued, "I'm a major shareholder of Zia Airlines. I don't need to book chartered flights." Silence. The entire plane was silent. The oval-faced woman, the employees of Flower Stem, and even Chu Yunyu were stunned. One had to know that Zia Airlines was the largest private airline company in Hua Nation. Lin Fan was actually a major shareholder. No wonder those beautiful stewardesses were so respectful to Lin Fan and served him so well. If that was the case, everything made sense. "When did you invest in Zia Airlines?" asked Chu Yunyu. Lin Fan said it's been a while. He did not explain much about when and how much money he had spent. This was because he had received everything from the system's red packets. It was not easy to explain.
Uh,
Another plane was heading toward Eagle Country. It was not as luxurious as Lin Fan's plane. The plane was full of people. The air was filled with the stench of body odor, foot odor, and other unpleasant smells. For lunch they had fries, burgers, tomato beef brisket rice, and other cheap food. A round-faced Caucasian man named Jonah Roger swallowed the last bite of his burger and wiped the oil off his face. He praised, "We're finally reaching Eagle Country." Beside him, Li, who was wearing heavy makeup, had a look of excitement on her face. Jonah Rogers' eyes turned slightly and he said, "Li, the streets of Hua Nation are filled with rubbish and all kinds of dirty things. When you get off the plane, you'll understand what it means to be an international metropolis. The streets are spotless and the buildings are extremely beautiful. Didn't you want to stay in Eagle Country's Royal Hotel? It just so happens that my family used to do business with Royal Hotel. My father is also good friends with the owner of the Royal Hotel. I've already told my dad about our arrival. He'll arrange for people from Royal Hotel to come and pick us up." When Jonah Roger said this, he could not help but raise his neck, looking like a high and mighty yet mysterious young master. In reality, he lied about his family having done business with Eagle Country's Royal Hotel. He also lied about his father and the owner of the Royal Hotel being good friends. He did not have a prominent family background, and his father was only familiar with an ordinary manager of the Royal Hotel. Jonah Roger had indeed told his father about their arrival. He also said that they were going to stay at the Royal Hotel. In this way, he could get a little discount from that supervisor. As for picking them up, that was normal because the Royal Hotel had a pickup service. Jonah Roger secretly glanced at Li's exquisite figure. He believed that after saying all this, Li would definitely worship him. When he brought her to the Royal Hotel, he would definitely be able to get her. It had to be said that Jonah Roger had a good grasp of Li's psychology. Li was very interested in foreigners. At this moment, she heard from Jonah that his family was able to do business with the Royal Hotel. Jonah Roger's father was a good friend of the owner of the Royal Hotel. In Li's heart, she was already imagining Jonah Roger's huge family power. Gradually, Jonah seemed to occupy more of her heart, causing her to be in a daze. Her face, which was covered in foundation, also began to reveal a hint of redness. Perhaps she would have a chance to join a foreign wealthy family. Rumbled. At this moment, the passenger plane shook violently. At the same time, a brisk voice sounded from the plane's broadcast. "Dear passengers, there's strong turbulence ahead. Please don't panic and fasten your seatbelts." The plane shook for about 5 minutes before it finally calmed down. After the plane continued on for 2 hours, an announcement sounded again. "Dear passengers, the plane is about to land in Lund City, Eagle Country. It's now 2:10 p.m. in Lund City and the temperature is 23 degrees. Please remain seated and fasten your seatbelts. The plane is about to land." 356 The son of the boss, good friend, liar. Rumbled. After a series of decelerations and bumps, the plane finally stopped. The moment Li got off the plane, she took a deep breath and praised, "As expected of Eagle Country, the air is so fresh and sweet." Then she looked into the distance and took out her phone to post a message on social media. How big of an influence does the environment have on a person? I'm in Lund City and I've just gotten off the plane. The buildings in Lund City have a strong European and American style and a sense of history. Even people from Hua Nation won't be able to help but set higher standards for themselves, improve their quality, and transform themselves into polite gentlemen and elegant ladies upon coming here. My foreign friend's father is friends with the owner of Eagle Country's Royal Hotel. He has already arranged for the people from the Royal Hotel to come and pick us up. Li Li's fingers were flying. In just a minute she had written a post with more than 100 words. After putting down her phone, her eyes quickly noticed a prominent banner not far away, "Welcome to Lund City, Eagle Country's Royal Hotel." Around the banner stood many men in suits and women with graceful figures. Several Rolls-Royce cars were parked behind, and there was even a helicopter. Seeing this, "Jonah, are these the people who came to pick us up?" Li said excitedly. In fact, Jonah Roger had also noticed the banner and the group of people. He was a little puzzled earlier, wondering if this was the group who came to pick him up. This formation seemed a little too big. However, when he saw how excited Li was, Jonah Roger puffed out his chest and said, "Of course, they're here to pick us up. My dad is a good friend of the owner of the Royal Hotel." What he was thinking was that he had spent so much money to stay at Eagle Country's Royal Hotel. It was normal for them to welcome him with huge fanfare. When Li heard this, her face was full of smiles. She followed Jonah Roger to where the banner was. "Are you from the Royal Hotel?" Jonah asked. Jack Smith, the chairman of Eagle Country's Royal Hotel, frowned slightly. General Manager Edward Mullins said, "Yes, we're from the Royal Hotel, sir. What can I do for you?" Jonah looked up and said, "That's good, I've already booked a room." "Oh right, my dad is also good friends with the owner of Eagle Country's Royal Hotel." He said this without any pressure. It was because Jonah Roger did not believe that such a small matter would be reported to the owner. Originally, Chairman Jack Smith did not want to bother with Jonah Roger at all. However, after hearing this, his heart skipped a beat. He said respectfully, "Hello, I'm Jack Smith. May I know your name?" Jonah Roger saw that, as he had expected, the other party could not tell whether what he said was the truth or not. Moreover, he was so respectful to him. He secretly glanced at Li, who was admiring him more and more. He said proudly, "I'm Jonah Roger." Just as Chairman Jack Smith was about to say something, his expression suddenly turned cold and he said seriously, "Everyone, line up and prepare for the welcoming ceremony." As he spoke, he hurriedly went forward. It was because he had seen his boss, Lin Fan. Lin Fan, Chu Yunyu, and the staff of Flower Stem slowly got off the luxury plane under the respectful escort of the beautiful air stewardesses. "Welcome to Lund City, Eagle Country, Mr. Lin," Chairman Jack Smith greeted respectfully. Immediately after, a group of men in suits and women with graceful figures behind him shouted in unison, "Welcome to Lund City, Eagle Country, Mr. Lin." Chu Yunyu and the other employees of the Flower Stem were a little stunned. All of them turned to look at Lin Fan. Lin Fan did not feel too uncomfortable and said, "You must be Jack Smith." Chairman Jack Smith, who was standing at the front, said, "Yes, Mr. Lin, we have already prepared a means of transportation for you. Would you like to go to the Eagle Country's Royal Hotel to rest for a while?" "All right," Lin Fan nodded. "Mr. Lin, this way please," Jack Smith said respectfully. Lin Fan, Chu Yunyu, and the staff of Flower Stem, surrounded by a large group of foreigners, came to the helicopter. At this moment, Jack Smith seemed to have thought of something and said, "By the way, Mr. Lin, your good friend's son seems to be here. Do you want to bring him along?" Lin Fan was puzzled. My good friend's son. He did not have many good friends. Even if one of them had given birth to a son, he had probably just learned how to walk, right? Yet he came to Eagle Country just like that. Jack Smith pointed at the fair-skinned Jonah Roger and said, "Yes, he just arrived." Lin Fan sized up Jonah Roger and said, "I don't know him." With that, he turned around and walked into the helicopter. Jack Smith was a smart man. At this moment, how could he not understand that this man was simply lying? After glaring at Jonah Roger, he also boarded the helicopter.
Rumbled.
The helicopter let out a roar as its propellers spun rapidly, forming a small hurricane as it soared into the sky. The Rolls-Royce motorcade parked next to the helicopter was speeding in the same direction. The helicopter in the sky and the Rolls-Royce fleet on the ground were all there to welcome Lin Fan. It was a luxurious sight. The luxury plane was too fast and was above the clouds. There was no way to enjoy the scenery of Lun City. The speed of the helicopter was relatively slow and flew at a low altitude. It was just enough for Lin Fan and the others to enjoy the beautiful scenery of Lun City. They looked at the European-style buildings with curiosity on their faces. That seems to be the Shield Eye. Is this it? It looks similar to the Ferris wheel in our country. That's the Tower Bridge of Lun City. That seems okay. Is that the security tower? It seems rather ordinary. Everyone commented from time to time. Although the buildings were a little novel, they were not shocking.
Uh,
As Lin Fan and the others boarded the helicopter and looked down at Lun City, Li and Jonah Roger, who were standing on the ground, were blown by the strong winds from the helicopter. Their clothes and hair rustled and the dust made them cough. The two of them only recovered after the helicopter took off. Jonah Roger, didn't you say that they were here to pick us up? Li said. This, Jonah Roger said awkwardly. Didn't you say that your father and the owner of the Royal Hotel were good friends? Li shouted. This, Jonah Roger did not know how to answer. You liar, Li shouted. After saying that, she turned around and left. Naturally, Lin Fan and the others did not know about Li, Jonah, and Roger. They looked down from the helicopter. About 10 minutes later, the helicopter slowly decelerated. In the end, they landed on a tall helipad. This was the Eagle Country's Royal Hotel.
Tusk.
When Lin Fan, Chu Yunyu, and Flower Stem's employees got off the helicopter, 2 rows of beautiful Caucasian women with exquisite looks and graceful figures said in unison, "Welcome, Mr. Lin." This scene shocked Chu Yunyu and the staff of Flower Stem. Then everyone's luggage was sent to the luxury suites on the top floor by the Caucasian beauties. Lin Fan, Chu Yunyu, and the others were led to the VIP room by Chairman Jack Smith. At this moment, the table in the VIP room was already filled with top-grade foie gras, cheese snails, top-grade steak, white truffle bagels, gold foil sundaes, caviar chocolate pudding, and many other delicacies. When Flower Stem's employees saw this, they could not take their eyes off. In fact, they were not the only ones who were attracted. Even Chu Yunyu was attracted. Lin Fan said, "Everyone has been on the plane for so long, you must be hungry and tired, right? Hurry up and eat." Generally speaking, one would get hungry and tired when they took a plane. However, this time they had taken a luxurious private plane. The plane had the best food and the best service. How could they be hungry or tired? However, at this moment when they saw the exquisite food, they could not help but pick up their cutlery and eat slowly. Very soon their stomachs became a little round, and they could not eat any more of the delicious food. Chu Yunyu wiped her mouth with a napkin and could not help but ask, "Lin Fan, don't tell me you're also a major shareholder of this hotel." Flower Stem's employees pricked up their ears. Obviously they had the same suspicion. This was normal. The welcome from the Royal Hotel was simply too great, and the service was too thoughtful. Lin Fan shook his head. That's not it. When everyone heard this, they all heaved a sigh of relief. It's all right, he isn't a major shareholder of Eagle Country's Royal Hotel. They had just secretly searched the internet. The Royal Hotel was a landmark building in Lun City. It was one of the most luxurious hotels in Lun City, and it cost more than billions of dollars to build. Their little hearts would not be able to withstand the torment. At this moment, Lin Fan continued, "I'm the owner of this hotel." Silence. The entire room was silent. The oval-faced woman, the other employees of Flower Stem, and Chu Yunyu were all stunned. He was not the major shareholder but the boss. In the past, many of Flower Stem's employees felt that Lin Fan had just provided them with some perfume recipes and beauty essence technology, yet he became the biggest shareholder of Flower Pedestal. He was simply too lucky. They guessed that Lin Fan would probably be so happy that he would not be able to sleep every day. Now it seemed like Lin Fan probably did not care about the shares at all. Lin Fan did not care about the stunned crowd and asked, Yunyu, are you full? Do you want to rest in the room? I'm not that tired yet, said Chu Yunyu. I'll go to the booth first. She was not a person who liked to relax and hated to work. In fact, she could be said to be a strong woman and a workaholic. Otherwise, she would not have been able to establish the famous flower stem in Hua Nation by herself. Lin Fan said, all right, I'll go with you. Then the two of them walked out side by side. A Rolls-Royce was already waiting at the entrance. This was specially arranged by Chairman Jack Smith so that Lin Fan could travel around Eagle Country. The driver was a Caucasian who was proficient in Hua Nation's language and English. It was effortless for him to communicate. At the same time, he also had good driving skills. Lin Fan was very satisfied with this. Soon they arrived at the International Exhibition Center. There was a huge LED display screen in front of the door which was playing promotional videos of different brands of perfume. Obviously, this was the venue for the upcoming International Perfume Exhibition. As it was not the time for the official exhibition yet, there were still some things that were not ready. Ordinary people were not allowed to enter and exit as they pleased. However, as one of the participating companies, Chu Yunyu, the president of Flower Stem, was naturally not an ordinary person. When Lin Fan and Chu Yunyu walked into the exhibition center, they were greeted by a strong fragrance. Obviously, many companies had already brought their own perfumes in. The two of them looked into the distance and saw various booths. After a while, they finally saw Flower Stem's booth. Different from the previous booth in Jiangbei City, Flower Stem's booth this time had a younger, more energetic and modern feel. Two men and women in Flower Stem uniforms were adjusting and modifying some small parts of the booth. They were very serious. As a result, they did not even see Chu Yunyu and Lin Fan's arrival. When a man turned around and was about to adjust the other positions of the booth, he shouted in surprise, Chairwoman Chu, Mr. Lin. When the others heard this, they all stopped what they were doing. They turned around and greeted respectfully, Chairwoman Chu, Mr. Lin. Chu Yunyu nodded, you've worked hard, the booth is very well done. When the four of them heard this, their faces revealed a hint of joy. Thank you for your compliment, Chairwoman Chu. This is what we should do. Then, Chu Yunyu gave a detailed exchange and reminder about certain places and things to pay attention to during the exhibition. When Lin Fan and Chu Yunyu left the exhibition center, it was already 2 hours later. At this moment the sky had already darkened. After flying for a day, they went to the exhibition center to check on the booth. All of this made Chu Yunyu very tired. However, Chu Yunyu knew she would not be able to fall asleep anyway. As long as she was on a business trip, no matter how tired she was, she could not fall asleep. There were some people who were instinctively wary of unfamiliar environments and would struggle to fall asleep. However, Chu Yunyu quickly fell asleep today. It was because she had Lin Fan by her side. The next day the sky was bright. Lin Fan opened his eyes slowly. There was no one around him. He habitually picked up his phone. A text message appeared on the screen as usual. Notice from Merchant Bank. 7,891,030 yuan was deposited into your account. As he had walked more yesterday, his income was higher than usual. Of course, Lin Fan did not care about this little bit of money. Then he turned his attention to the sign-in system. He muttered in his heart, this is my first time signing in abroad, let's see what I can get. Sign in. Ding, congratulations, you've obtained 10% of Eagle Country Oil Company's shares. Eagle Country Oil Company. Lin Fan did not know much about Eagle Country's companies. Lil White, help me check the information on Eagle Country Oil Company. The super smart watch on Lin Fan's wrist flashed slightly before emitting a crisp and pleasant sound. Eagle Country Oil Company is one of the top 3 companies in Eagle Country and one of the top 100 companies in the world. Its current market value is 1.05 trillion yuan. Chairman Jules Grant, the largest shareholder, holds 14.1% of the shares and the owner holds 10% of the shares. You're the second biggest shareholder. When Lin Fan heard this, he could not help but rub his nose. The top 3 companies in Eagle Country. Its current market value was 1.05 trillion. He had 10% of the shares, which meant that he had earned 100 billion today.
Not bad.
Then Lin Fan slowly climbed up from the bed. When he came to the living room of the suite, he saw Chu Yunyu working hard in front of the computer. At this moment a crisp bell rang outside. Chu Yunyu could not help but slowly raise her head. She was about to get up and open the door. "Let me do it," said Lin Fan. As he spoke, he directly opened the door. 2 attendants were pushing a cart in the corridor. They smiled and said, "Hello, Mr. Lin, this is your breakfast." Lin Fan nodded. "All right, please bring it in." Then a very exquisite breakfast was placed on the dining table. After the attendants left, Chu Yunyu asked, "When did you get up?" "It's only been a while," Lin Fan said. "This breakfast looks pretty good, come and try it." "All right," Chu Yunyu replied. Just as Lin Fan had said, the breakfast was indeed not bad. White truffle meat slices, ham, beans, and high-end bread. The high-end ingredients and superb cooking techniques made the taste of the food explode in their mouths. Lin Fan and Chu Yunyu were very satisfied. Lin Fan picked up the black tea and asked, "Yunyu, do you want to try some imported black tea?" Chu Yunyu was a little confused. Imported black tea. However, she still replied, "Okay." Lin Fan took a sip first and then leaned toward Chu Yunyu.
Gulp. Eh?
In the blink of an eye, 2 hours had passed. Chu Yunyu changed her clothes and returned to the living room to continue working. It could not be helped. The International Perfume Exhibition was going to be held tomorrow. She had to prepare everything. Lin Fan did not want to disturb Chu Yunyu's work. At the same time, this was his first time going abroad. Therefore, he chose to go out for a walk. He walked on the straight sidewalk that was surrounded by houses made of steel and cement. If it was not for the people of different skin tones passing by, Lin Fan would have thought that he was in a particular city within the country. Of course, there were still differences between Eagle Country and Hua Nation. Most of the people in Hua Nation worked hard and were very diligent. Therefore, even if they were walking on the streets, they looked like they were in a hurry. As for the people in Eagle Country, everyone seemed to be very free. In a dark alley, someone was holding a bottle of wine and swaying, almost falling to the ground. Another person was playing the violin and singing on the street. He also saw someone who was lying down casually. Lin Fan walked and looked around leisurely. At this moment, the phone in his pocket vibrated slightly. 12:00 p.m. The red packets were here. "Ding, congratulations, you've received 3 yuan. Ding, congratulations, you've received 1,999 yuan.
Eh?
Ding, congratulations, you've received 188 yuan. Ding, congratulations, you've received a Ferrari 812.
Eh?
Lin Fan kept clicking on the red packets and got a total of 45,211 yuan and a Ferrari 812. Lin Fan was quite familiar with this car. In order to complete a past mission, he had specially bought one. Lin Fan's cars were endless. Therefore, the Ferrari 812 was left in the Coiling Dragon Villa. Now that he had come to Eagle Country, he did not have a single car. It was good that he had obtained one. Lin Fan looked around, trying to find the Ferrari 812.
Eh?
Not far away, a fair-skinned middle-aged woman whispered, "Our son has always said that he wants a sports car. What should we do? With our family's situation, we can't afford a sports car at all." The fair-skinned middle-aged man said casually, "Don't worry, I'm already prepared. Isn't today our son's birthday? I bought him a fridge so that he can calm down." At this moment, a delivery car drove over from afar and stopped steadily in front of them. "Are you Mr. Lauren?" the courier asked. "It's me," the middle-aged man replied. "Your express delivery has arrived," the courier said. As he spoke, he slowly took out a box that was half the height of a person from the back. "See that?" the middle-aged man laughed. "It's already here." As soon as the delivery car left, a young man with golden hair walked over. In the next moment, he could not take his eyes off something. He had found a brand new supercar parked by the roadside. It was his favorite open-top supercar, the Ferrari 812. The middle-aged man smiled and said, "Son, I've prepared a birthday present for you. Do you like it?" Birthday present. Was it this Ferrari 812? That was right. This must be the case. The young man said excitedly, I like it so much, Daddy, I knew you loved me." Then, without waiting for the middle-aged man's reply, he impatiently came to the front of the Ferrari 812 and gently stroked the body of the car. He touched the soft interior, his slightly freckled face was overcome with delight. At this moment a tall young woman walked over and asked in surprise, "Is this your car?" "Yes, it is. My father prepared this as a birthday present for me," the young man said. "That's great. Didn't you want me to be your girlfriend?" "I agree," the young woman said. "Good, ha ha ha," the young man shouted happily and then hugged the young woman in his arms. While they were hugging, they did not notice a Hua Nation man coming to the front of the Ferrari 812. He slowly opened the door and got in. This person was Lin Fan. Lin Fan naturally did not care about the two people hugging each other. He stepped on the accelerator and sped away. The young man seemed to have heard the sound as well. He hurriedly let go of the young woman and shouted with his eyes wide open, "Hey, my car, my car." He shouted as he chased. However, how could his two legs catch up to the four wheels of a supercar? The young man had no choice but to return and call out, "Dad, call the police. The Ferrari 812 you gave me was stolen." The middle-aged man opened his mouth and said, "That's not my birthday present to you. The real birthday present is actually this refrigerator." "What?" The young man's eyes widened. "So you don't have a sports car, then I'm not your—" Lin Fan had no idea about the misunderstanding between the young man and his father. He drove the Ferrari 812 through the streets of Lun City. Some people said that only those in Hua Nation who had not seen the world would be attracted by sports cars. If it was overseas, a sports car would just be an ordinary means of transportation. No one would even take a second look at it. In reality, Lin Fan was driving the Ferrari 812 on the streets of Lun City. Wherever he went, he would attract the attention of many people. Just like that, Lin Fan went on a short one-day tour of the city.
Hey,
In the blink of an eye, the next day arrived. Today, Chu Yunyu was wearing a white shirt, black trousers, and a pair of black high heels. She looked very capable. Under the escort of the Royal Hotel's private car, Chu Yunyu, Lin Fan, the oval-faced woman, and the staff of Flower Stem arrived at the exhibition center very quickly. The exhibition center was very lively today. Even at the door, one could easily smell the fragrance that assailed one's nostrils, mesmerizing one. It seemed like it was also because of this that it attracted an endless stream of people that kept surging in. Many people with different skin colors came to the booths. They either tried out the perfumes, asked about them, or bought them. Except for Flower Stem. The sky gradually darkened, but no one came to Flower Stem's booth. Chu Yunyu and the employees could not help but feel anxious. Flower Stem was very popular in Hua Nation. However, it was not famous overseas. Therefore, they knew that they would not receive much attention. Chu Yunyu and the others were mentally prepared. However, the current situation was far beyond what they had expected. At this moment, a white man in a suit slowly walked over and smiled at Chu Yunyu. "Hello, beautiful lady, my name is Brewer, may I know your name?" "My name is Chu Yunyu," replied Chu Yunyu politely. Brewer's eyes lit up when he heard that. He praised, "Your voice is very pleasant, also based on your name you should be from Hua Nation." Although Brewer had a plan in his mind, his expression did not change. He continued, "I saw that no one has been visiting your booth. How about it? Do you want to have a drink or two tonight? I'll tell you some methods." Brewer was a staff member of GR Perfume, which had a booth diagonally opposite Flower Stem's booth. Ever since Chu Yunyu arrived at the booth, Brewer was immediately attracted to her. Chu Yunyu had the same voluptuous figure as the top beauties of Eagle Country. At the same time, she had exquisite facial features that far surpassed the top beauties of Eagle Country. In addition, she had a unique exotic temperament. In Brewer's eyes, Chu Yunyu was the most perfect woman in the world. Therefore, whenever he had the time, he would sneak a peek at Chu Yunyu. When today's exhibition was about to end, he could not wait to walk over. Brewer knew that many people from Hua Nation liked foreigners very much. Now, he had proposed a way to increase the number of customers at the booth. He believed that Chu Yunyu would definitely agree to his request. As long as they drank together, he would have a chance. Brewer was already cheering in his heart. However, "That's all right," said Chu Yunyu. Chu Yunyu was not a fool considering how she was able to establish such a huge company. She could tell what Brewer was thinking at a glance. Then Chu Yunyu ignored Brewer and said, "Today's exhibition is about to end. Everyone, pack your things and get ready to go back and rest." Then she held onto Lin Fan's arm and walked out together. Seeing this, Brewer's body stiffened slightly and his face turned ugly.
Wait.
In the blink of an eye, it was the morning of the third day. Although Flower Stem could be said to have suffered a huge setback, Chu Yunyu, the oval-faced woman, and the staff of Flower Stem were still in high spirits. They were looking forward to the day being different. However, sometimes things went against one's wishes. The entire morning had passed, but no one was interested in Flower Stem. Brewer took advantage of the lunch break to come to Chu Yunyu again. He said, "Beautiful Ms. Chu, do you really not want more customers at your booth? By the way, I forgot to tell you that my uncle is Alan Peter, the director of Eagle Country Oil Company. I think you should understand that I have the ability to make your booth have more customers, right? Why don't we have lunch together and discuss it properly?" Brewer noticed that Chu Yunyu already had a boyfriend yesterday. However, this meant nothing to him. Not to mention having a boyfriend, even if she was already married, there was no problem with that. After Brewer finished speaking, he puffed out his chest and made a gesture that he thought was handsome. He thought that Chu Yunyu would be immediately convinced by his charm after seeing his handsome appearance and hearing that he had an uncle who was the director of Eagle Country Oil Company. However, the result was different from what he had expected. "My boyfriend and I are going out for dinner, don't block the way," Chu Yunyu said. She was an entrepreneur, but at the same time she could also be considered a businesswoman. A businessperson would not easily make enemies with others. Therefore, even if they hated someone, they had to be tactful and polite on the surface. As for Chu Yunyu, she did not have any intention of being tactful to Brewer, who was suspected to have a powerful background. After saying that, Chu Yunyu held Lin Fan's arm again and walked out. Seeing this, Brewer's mouth twitched slightly, and his expression became a little ugly. Lin Fan had a weird expression on his face as he looked at Brewer. His uncle was the director of Eagle Country Oil Company. Interesting. Lin Fan and Chu Yunyu had just finished their lunch. When they returned to the exhibition center, the phone in his pocket rang. He looked at the caller ID and saw that it was an unknown number. Lin Fan did not hesitate and answered the call. Very quickly, a somewhat dull and awkward-sounding sentence spoken in the Hua Nation language rang out from the other end. "Hello, Mr. Lin." Lin Fan said, "Hello, may I know who you are?" Then the earlier voice was replaced by a very clear and pleasant voice. "Hello, Mr. Lin, I'm the interpreter for the chairman of Eagle Country Oil Company, Jules Grant. The person who just spoke to you is the chairman, Mr. Jules Grant. He asked me to convey his regards to you again." Lin Fan had received similar calls several times. Thus, this time he was not too surprised. He said indifferently, "Please say my hello to Mr. Jules Grant." Then fluent English sounded on the phone. Even though Lin Fan could clearly understand, he did not point it out. "Mr. Jules Grant said that he would like to thank you for your trust in Eagle Country Oil Company and for becoming the second largest shareholder of the company." Generally speaking, the interpreter's tone should always be consistent. However, when she said this, there was an obvious change. One had to know. Eagle Country Oil Company was a super company with a market value of more than 1 trillion yuan. The man she was speaking to on the other end of the line had actually become the second largest shareholder. He was definitely a big shot who could hold the heavens in his hands. "Mr. Lin, may I know where you are now? Is it convenient for us to meet?" the interpreter continued after a pause. Lin Fan said, "I'm in Eagle Country now. As for the meeting, I'm at the exhibition center in Lund City to participate in the International Perfume Exhibition. I'm afraid I don't have much time for the time being." There was no sound from the other line. Obviously, Lin Fan's answer surprised Jules Grant. After a while, the interpreter said, "So, you're in Lund City. That's great. Mr. Jules Grant will definitely pay a visit personally later." Lin Fan chatted for a while more before hanging up. Just as the interpreter had said, Jules Grant was indeed going to pay a visit. However, just as he got in the car, the phone in his pocket rang. He looked at the caller ID and his expression became slightly solemn. He quickly picked up the phone and said respectfully, "Greetings, Your Majesty." "Your Majesty." Jules Grant called out softly, but there was no response from the other side of the phone. Just as he was at a loss for what to do, a slightly hoarse voice finally sounded from the phone. "Huh, did I accidentally make a call? Lil Jules, hello." Lil Grant. One had to know that Jules Grant was already 61 years old. In addition, as the chairman of Eagle Country Oil Company, how many people in this world could call him Lil Jules? Queen Ibai was obviously among them. That was because she was the queen of Eagle Country, and she was 91 years old. "Greetings, Queen Ibai," Jules Grant said hurriedly. "Your oil company, how's the situation recently?" Queen Ibai asked. "Recently, the development has been stable and the overall situation is good," Jules Grant said. Queen Ibai nodded and said, "That's not bad. Today is a workday. Are you still busy at the company?" "I'm on my way to the exhibition center," Jules Grant answered truthfully. "Exhibition center?" Queen Ibai was puzzled. "Yes, because there seems to be an international perfume exhibition there today. Our company's new second-largest shareholder is exhibiting there," Jules Grant said. "Perfume?" Queen Ibai sighed. Then she seemed to have fallen asleep. For a long time, there was no sound from the phone. Jules Grant did not dare to disturb her and just held his phone silently. At this moment, Queen Ibai spoke again. "What a nostalgic time. Lil Jules, let me go to the perfume exhibition with you." Huh, Jules Grant was slightly stunned. He did not expect the queen to make such a request. Queen Ibai did not give him much time to react. "That's all, come to the palace first." After hanging up, Queen Ibai made 2 more calls. Immediately after, the luxurious motorcade, the guards, and so on all moved quickly. The queen was a noble person, so she had to show royal dignity and ensure her safety. The commotion in the palace was quickly noticed by a pale and thin little girl. When the little girl arrived at the main hall, Queen Ibai asked, "My cute Lil Riley, why are you here? How are you feeling?" This little girl was called Riley, and she was Queen Ibai's 15th great-granddaughter. At the same time, she was also Queen Ibai's favorite great-granddaughter. Unfortunately, shortly after she was born, she suddenly suffered from a very strange illness. She had a loss of appetite and she often vomited and fainted. The doctors did all kinds of tests, but they were still unable to determine the illness. "Riley is feeling very well," Riley said. "All right, as long as Lil Riley is fine," Queen Ibai smiled kindly. "You seem to be sleeping very late recently. You have to take care of your health," Riley said. All right," Queen Ibai said happily. "My Lil Riley is so obedient, you're even showing concern for me." An old man and a young man chatted casually in the hall. The topic was very relaxed and they would laugh from time to time. At this moment, Riley finally said, "I heard that you're going to the exhibition center to attend a perfume exhibition. Can you bring me along?" As she said this, her big eyes flashed. Obviously, she was looking forward to this. Queen Ibai opened her mouth but did not agree immediately. That was because she knew that Riley's physical condition was very bad. Some doctors even said that accidents could happen at any time. To participate in a perfume exhibition in such a physical condition, after all, there were too many people there. What if? Rationally, Queen Ibai did not want her great-granddaughter to go to the perfume exhibition. However, when she looked at Riley's expectant eyes, her heart softened. Ever since it was discovered that Riley was suffering from a strange illness, she had been staying in the palace almost every day. She was like a canary in a cage. Perfume was like flowers, possessing a mesmerizing charm. The perfume exhibition was like a blooming flower, attracting all the women. It just so happened that there was a perfume exhibition today. If Riley missed it, would there be a next time? At the thought of this, Queen Ibai finally said, "Okay, then I'll bring you to the perfume exhibition." "Really?" Riley shouted excitedly. Queen Ibai smiled when she saw how happy she was. "Of course, it's true." "That's great." Riley could not help but hug Queen Ibai's arm. At this moment, the sound of brisk footsteps could be heard from outside. Soon, a middle-aged man dressed in European noble clothes slowly walked in. He bowed slightly and said in a very respectful tone, "Respected Queen, Mr. Jules Grant requests an audience." In the afternoon, Eagle Country Exhibition Center was as lively as in the morning. The situation at Flower Stem's booth was still the same. No one was interested. Even though Chu Yunyu had already rejected Brewer twice in a row, whenever he had some free time, he would come to look for Chu Yunyu. "Beautiful Ms. Chu, it seems that no one is visiting your booth. How about we have a few drinks tonight and discuss it?" "I might not have made myself clear yesterday. In fact, before long I'll also enter Eagle Country Oil Company and join the ranks of its management. Therefore, you can absolutely believe in my abilities." As he said this, he puffed out his chest. Eagle Country Oil Company was definitely one of the companies with the best benefits in Eagle Country. Yesterday he was showing off his background. Today he was showing off his future. He believed that Chu Yunyu would definitely be attracted to him.
Eh?
The continuous harassment made Chu Yunyu completely disgusted. She frowned and was about to speak. At this moment, the already lively exhibition center suddenly became extremely noisy, and there were occasional cries of surprise. "Queen Ibai is here." Queen Ibai has come to the exhibition center to participate in the International Perfume Exhibition. Heavens!
Eh?
Just as everyone had said, Queen Ibai was indeed here. At this moment, Queen Ibai, Jules Grant, Riley, and a group of nobles were slowly walking into the exhibition center. Queen Ibai's expression did not change much, but her heart was filled with nostalgia. Due to her health, she rarely left the palace and had never participated in any perfume exhibition. At this moment, she looked at the various booths and smelled the rich fragrance in the air. Her entire thin face was filled with excitement. At this moment, Queen Ibai seemed to have thought of something and said, "Lil Jules, where did you say the second largest shareholder of your company was?" "His name is Lin Fan, but I haven't seen him yet. If the Queen wishes to see him, I'll ask him to come over," Jules Grant said honestly. "All right," Queen Ibai nodded and said. Even Queen Ibai could not ignore Eagle Country's oil company. Jules Grant first dialed Lin Fan's number, but unfortunately no one picked up. He had just told the Queen that he would look for the second largest shareholder. How could he say now that he could not find him? What would the Queen think of him? Jules Grant felt helpless as he quickly walked away. In that case, he would go and find Lin Fan himself. Jules Grant quickly walked forward and searched for Lin Fan in the crowd. Luckily, Jules Grant knew that Lin Fan was of Hua Nation nationality. He would stand out among the fair-skinned and dark-skinned people of Eagle Country. Even so, Jules Grant spent nearly half an hour looking around before he finally saw Flower Stem's booth. His gaze was locked on a tall, handsome man of Hua descent. "Mr. Lin," Jules Grant shouted excitedly. He shouted and ran toward Flower Stem's booth. When Lin Fan heard someone calling him, he turned around slowly. Although this was a foreign man with a beard, Lin Fan relied on his superb memory to easily identify him from his voice. Jules Grant had just run over, but before he could say anything, Brewer, who was standing at the side, took the lead and said in an extremely respectful and excited tone, "Hello, Mr. Grant." Brewer's uncle was the director of Eagle Country Oil Company, and he had always wanted to enter Eagle Country Oil Company. Therefore, he paid more attention to the news and higher-ups of Eagle Country Oil Company compared to the average person. Brewer did not expect to meet the chairman of Eagle Country Oil Company at the perfume exhibition today. In his opinion, this was definitely a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. If only he could leave a slight impression on the chairman. In that case, after some time when he successfully entered Eagle Country Oil Company, would he not be able to immediately be promoted and make a fortune? Thinking of this, Brewer felt excited. Every day, countless people would greet Jules Grant. Usually, Jules Grant would just nod in response. He could also just pretend that he did not hear them. It would be too tiring to answer all of them one by one. However, when Jules Grant saw that Brewer and Lin Fan were standing together, he thought that he was Lin Fan's friend. Thus he nodded and said, "Hello, hello." The chairman of Eagle Country Oil Company had greeted him. Although it was just a simple reply, it sounded like heavenly music to Brewer's ears. He was filled with endless joy. However, Jules Grant did not pay attention to Brewer anymore. Then he said to Lin Fan in English in a respectful tone, "Mr. Lin, so you're here." The interpreter beside him translated the words. Lin Fan said, "I'm the major shareholder of Flower Stem, of course I'm here." "I see," Jules Grant said. "Oh right, our Queen Ibai wants to see you." "Why does Queen Ibai want to see me?" Lin Fan asked curiously. In fact, Lin Fan was not the only one who was confused. Chu Yunyu and the others were also confused. However, before Jules Grant could answer, there was another commotion not far away. "Greetings, Queen Ibai." "Greetings, Queen Ibai." Everyone looked in the direction of the voice. They saw a large group of luxuriously dressed men and women walking over. The person walking at the front had a head full of hair and a peaceful expression. It was Queen Ibai, who often appeared on television and the news. Queen Ibai waved her hand gently in response to the greetings from the people around her. When she turned her head, she happened to see Jules Grant standing in front of Flower Stem's booth. She could not help but walk forward slowly. "Lil Jules, you're here," Queen Ibai said. "Yes," Jules Grant respectfully said, "this is Mr. Lin." When Queen Ibai heard this, she could not help but size Lin Fan up. Her kind face revealed a look of surprise. When she heard Jules Grant introduce Lin Fan's name, she had already guessed that he was a man from Hua Nation. However, she did not expect Lin Fan to be so young. After a while, Queen Ibai said, "Hello, Mr. Lin." Lin Fan replied, "Queen Ibai, nice to meet you." When he said this, his eyes inadvertently fell on Riley, who was standing beside Queen Ibai, and he frowned slightly. Observation, smell, question, and pulse taking were the methods of diagnosis in traditional medicine. Some highly skilled doctors could judge a person's physical condition with just a glance. Lin Fan had obtained Sun Simiao's medical experience. Sun Simiao was the king of medicine. Naturally, he was a brilliant traditional medicine practitioner. Lin Fan could tell that there was something wrong with Riley's body. Moreover, the problem was huge. Queen Ibai noticed that Lin Fan was staring at Riley and asked, "Mr. Lin, this is my great-granddaughter Riley, what's the matter?" Even if he was staring at an ordinary girl, it was not a very polite thing to do. Lin Fan said, "1 minute, I estimate that she'll faint in about 1 minute, she'll be in critical condition." Chu Yunyu, the oval-faced woman, and the staff of Flower Stem. Originally, they were extremely excited because of Queen Ibai's arrival. However, after hearing Lin Fan's words, everyone froze. What did Lin Fan mean? One had to know that Queen Ibai had just said that Riley was her great-granddaughter, the princess of Eagle Country. In the end, Lin Fan said that she was going to faint in 1 minute and would be in critical condition. What was this? Was he cursing her? He was cursing Eagle Country's princess. If Queen Ibai blamed him. Because of Lin Fan's words, the atmosphere turned heavy. At this moment, Riley, who was looking around curiously, suddenly rolled her eyes and fell to the ground. Queen Ibai's heart tightened and she hurriedly called out, "Doctor." The nobles beside her also shouted, "Doctor, come quickly. Princess Riley has fainted."
Eh?
When the queen went out, the doctor would always follow her. He quickly ran over. The doctor lifted Riley's eyelids and listened to her heartbeat. Then he took out a syringe and injected it into Riley's snow-white arm. Obviously, the doctor had a deep understanding of Riley's condition. After doing this, the doctor heaved a sigh of relief and said, "Your Highness, she should wake up soon." In the past, the doctor had always treated Riley like this. The effect was also very good. However, This time, after he finished speaking, Riley suddenly began to foam at the corner of her mouth, and her eyeballs kept rolling. Seeing this, the doctor's heart tightened, and a layer of cold sweat instantly appeared on his forehead. He quickly bent down and began to perform emergency treatment on Riley, but it was useless. "Doctor, how is it?" Queen Ibai asked anxiously. The doctor quickly said, "Maybe it's because the dosage of the medicine isn't enough. I'll give the princess another injection." After saying that, he took out another syringe and was about to inject it into Riley's arm. This moment, Lin Fan suddenly shouted, "Don't inject anymore, do you want her to die?" Lin Fan was not a saint. However, when he saw Riley fall ill in front of him, for some reason, Lin Fan suddenly recalled the scene of his sister falling sick. As he spoke, he pushed the doctor to the ground. The guards thought that Lin Fan was a dangerous person and wanted to stop him. At this moment, Lin Fan said, "I can save her." Lin Fan's every sentence was translated by the interpreter. When Queen Ibai heard this, she suddenly thought of what Lin Fan had said earlier. 1 minute, she'll faint in 1 minute and be in critical condition. "Everyone stand down," Queen Ibai hurriedly said. No one dared to disobey the queen's orders. The guards retreated. Immediately, Queen Ibai, Jules Grant, Chu Yunyu, and everyone else focused their attention on Lin Fan. Lin Fan opened a bottle of flower stems perfume and placed it by Riley's nose. About half a minute later, Riley stopped foaming. Obviously, it had alleviated her symptoms. Lin Fan thought for a moment and spent 10 million yuan to buy a bottle of medical water from the system. He poured it into Riley's mouth. With Lin Fan's current medical skills, even without the use of any healing potions, he could still completely cure Riley. However, if Lin Fan were to save her, he would need to prescribe a prescription, get the medicine, and so on. It would be too troublesome. Lin Fan hated trouble. After consuming medical water, Riley slowly opened her eyes. Riley saw that she was lying on the ground while Queen Ibai and everyone around her were looking at her. She said timidly, Did I get sick again?" Seeing this, Jules Grant could not help but heave a sigh of relief. When Lin Fan pushed the doctor away and said that he could save Riley, his heart was in his throat. Lin Fan was the second largest shareholder of Eagle Country Oil Company. At the same time, he was the one who introduced him to Queen Ibai. If anything happened, he would definitely be unable to escape the responsibility. The consequences would definitely be terrifying. Good, it's good that you're awake," Queen Ibai said happily. After a pause, she said, "Quickly thank Mr. Lin, he saved you." "Thank you," Riley said timidly, "Mr. Lin." "You're welcome," said Lin Fan. "I wonder what you used to save my lil Riley," Queen Ibai asked. As she spoke, her slightly cloudy eyes landed on the flower stem perfume in Lin Fan's hand. Lin Fan did not hesitate and passed it over casually, a bottle of perfume. Queen Ibai was slightly stunned. A bottle of perfume. He used perfume to wake up her great-granddaughter. Queen Ibai slowly took the perfume with doubts in her heart. She placed it by her nose and sniffed it gently before nodding slightly. Although the distance was quite far, when Lin Fan opened the bottle, Queen Ibai could still smell the fragrance. At this moment, when she smelled it again, she could not help but praise, "What a nice smell, it has distinct layers, I like it very much." After a pause, she continued, "Mr. Lin, in the future, if Lil Riley falls ill again, will she only need to smell this perfume? Is there a way to cure her completely?" As she said this, Queen Ibai's usually calm face revealed an obvious look of anticipation. She loved Riley very much. Every time she saw her fall ill, she felt very uncomfortable. Unfortunately, no doctor could cure her. Today, Queen Ibai saw a glimmer of hope. Lin Fan said calmly, "Don't worry, she won't fall ill again." When Queen Ibai heard this, even she could not help but become excited. "Really, has she completely recovered?" "Yes," Lin Fan replied. "That's great, Queen Ibai." As Queen Ibai spoke, she could not help but look at Riley. Her originally pale face was now flushed with a healthy red color. "All right." Riley had really recovered. "Mr. Lin, may I purchase a batch of this perfume?" Queen Ibai asked after some thought. Her thoughts were simple. It did not matter if Riley was completely cured or not. However, one thing was certain. This perfume would definitely be helpful to Riley's condition. Sniffing this perfume was obviously more suitable than getting an injection. In addition, Queen Ibai really liked the smell of the perfume. Chu Yunyu, the oval-faced woman, and the staff of Flower Stem all revealed unconcealable excitement when they heard this. Finally, someone wanted to buy Flower Stem's perfume. Moreover, this person was the Queen of Eagle Country. This was good news. This was definitely great news. Compared to Chu Yunyu and the others, Lin Fan was much calmer. Of course, he said casually, this perfume is called Flower Stem. In fact, what you have is only part of the collection. There are many other different perfumes. As he spoke, Lin Fan placed all the perfumes on the table. Queen Ibai sniffed all the perfumes and nodded slowly. They all smell very good. I'll buy 100 bottles of each perfume. All right, said Lin Fan. At this moment, a noblewoman whispered something into Queen Ibai's ear. Queen Ibai's expression turned slightly solemn as she said, Mr. Lin, thank you for saving Lil Riley. There are some things that need to be taken care of in the palace now. In 2 days, I'll hold a banquet to thank you. Your Majesty, you're welcome, Lin Fan said. The two of them exchanged a few more words before Queen Ibai turned around and left. Even though Queen Ibai had left, the people who had been watching from the start were still focused on Flower Stem's booth. The chairman of Eagle Country Oil Company, Jules Grant, looked at Lin Fan with admiration and envy. Mr. Lin, you're really amazing. You actually used perfume to wake up our Princess Riley. In the future, your perfume will definitely be world famous. Lin Fan said, world famous, that would be very difficult. Then he pointed at Brewer and said, Mr. Brewer's uncle is Alan Peter, the director of Eagle Country Oil Company. And he himself is about to join the management of Eagle Country Oil Company. He used this identity to get my girlfriend to go on a date with him. He also used this to say that he could help our Flower Stem attract customers. The interpreter at the side quickly translated Lin Fan's words. Using his identity to invite Mr. Lin's girlfriend on a date. He was a mere nephew of a director, yet he said he was about to become a manager. How dare he? How dare he? Not to mention that Lin Fan was the second largest shareholder of Eagle Country Oil Company. Just the fact that Lin Fan had just saved Princess Riley meant he absolutely could not be offended. Jules Grant finally shouted, How dare you? Let me tell you, if Alan Peter is really your uncle, he will receive the punishment he deserves. Also, don't even think about entering Eagle Country Oil Company in this lifetime. Brewer's face instantly turned pale. Eagle Country Oil Company was one of the companies that gave out the best benefits in Eagle Country. In order to join, he had spent a lot of effort. Now all his hopes were dashed. In addition, would his uncle be punished because of him? His uncle would kill him. He definitely would. Thinking of this, Brewer shouted in fear, No, 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 don't, Mr. Chairman, please let me go. However, Jules Grant acted as if he did not hear him and did not care at all. Then Brewer begged Lin Fan, Mr. Lin, I'm sorry, I'm shameless, I'm despicable, I beg you, please forgive me, I beg you. Get lost, Lin Fan spat out coldly. Although it was only 2 words, Brewer was frightened. He gritted his teeth and was about to plead again when Jules Grant said, Didn't you hear? Mr. Lin told him to get lost. The 2 muscular black men beside him were like ferocious beasts. They directly stepped forward and drove Brewer out. The entire venue fell silent. Mr. Lin, I'm sorry, I can't believe such an unpleasant thing happened, Jules Grant apologized. Lin Fan said calmly, Every company will have some parasites, but the situation still needs to be managed. Yes, don't worry, Mr. Lin, I'll definitely be stricter with my employees, Jules Grant hurriedly said. Are you free now, Mr. Lin? I'll give you a simple report on the situation of Eagle Country Oil Company last year and the direction of development in the coming year. If you have any other suggestions, you can also raise them. Lin Fan waved his hand. No need, I'm not interested in this. It's best to leave professional matters to the professionals. Everything will develop according to the direction you have set. Jules Grant heaved a sigh of relief. Lin Fan was too young, but he had too many shares in the company. It would be very troublesome if he were to command the company's strategies. The method that Lin Fan mentioned was the best. Jules Grant thought to himself, then said, "Really? All right then, if you have any suggestions for the company in the future, you can tell me at any time." While the two were chatting, Flower Stem's booth was already filled with people. "Hello, I want to buy your perfumes. I want 100 bottles. I want 200 bottles."
Wait.
The sky gradually darkened. Chu Yunyu, Lin Fan, and the staff of Flower Stem finally returned to the Royal Hotel. Everyone was very busy this afternoon. However, their faces were all filled with smiles. The oval-faced woman said excitedly, "We were almost as popular as we are back home today." "That's right, if it wasn't for the fact that the exhibition was about to end, those people wouldn't have been willing to leave at all," another person said. "In the past, people always said that foreigners had good qualities and never cut lines. In the afternoon, I saw a few foreigners cut the queue to buy our perfumes," the man in the white shirt said. "Did you stop them?" the oval-faced woman asked. "Of course," the man in the shirt said. "I told them to queue up again, otherwise I wouldn't sell them anything." "Beautifully done," the oval-faced woman exclaimed. The employees of Flower Stem chatted and laughed, the atmosphere extremely heated. Even Chu Yunyu could not help but smile. It had always been Chu Yunyu's dream to make Flower Stem the world's top perfume brand. What happened this afternoon had taken her one big step closer to this dream. "How many orders have we received in total?" Chu Yunyu asked. 108,900 bottles, the oval-faced woman said. "Not bad," Chu Yunyu nodded in satisfaction. Then she looked at Lin Fan curiously and asked, "Lin Fan, why can our Flower Stem's perfume heal Princess Riley?" Everyone in Flower Stem pricked up their ears. Obviously, they were also very curious about this matter. They had seen it with their own eyes. At that time, Riley looked very pitiful. Her face was pale, she had fainted, and she was foaming at the mouth. Even the doctor did not seem to know what to do. In the end, Lin Fan took out the Flower Stem's perfume and placed it by Riley's nose for her to sniff for half a minute. Immediately, she stopped foaming at the mouth and her complexion turned for the better. When he fed Riley some liquid, she immediately woke up. In the eyes of everyone, this was simply too unbelievable. Lin Fan said, "Riley's mother must have had a difficult birth. Riley's body is weak and she catches a cold easily." So, Eagle Country's royal family placed her in a confined space for a long time and gave her a lot of supplements. However, a child's body can't absorb that many supplements. In addition, there was a long-term lack of air circulation. It caused problems in her respiratory system, digestive system, and so on. Riley had been sealed off from the world for a long time. Today, she walked for a long time in the exhibition center that was filled with different fragrances. This increased the burden on her respiratory system, which eventually caused her to fall ill. "If that's the case, then why did she get better after smelling our perfume?" Chu Yunyu asked again. "That's because I took the Win series," Lin Fan said. Mint was added to the Win series. Mint has the effects of clearing the head and throat, thus reducing the burden on the respiratory system. Or rather, it makes the respiratory system think that it has come to an empty field. Lin Fan was a perfume expert and knew all kinds of perfumes like the back of his hand. In addition, he had Sun Simeo's medical experience, so he easily came up with a simple treatment plan. After hearing Lin Fan's explanation, everyone's faces lit up. At this moment, Chu Yunyu seemed to have thought of something and asked, "By the way, why does the chairman of Eagle Country Oil Company know you and treat you so respectfully? Don't tell me you're the boss of Eagle Country Oil Company or the largest shareholder." The oval-faced woman and the employees of Flower Stem perked up their ears again. They were also very concerned about this. "That's not what Lin Fan said." Chu Yunyu was slightly relieved after hearing what he had to say. Lin Fan was already the owner of Eagle Country's Royal Hotel and the biggest shareholder of Zia Airlines. What if he was also the boss or the largest shareholder of an oil company? Their little hearts would be unable to accept it. At this moment, Lin Fan continued, "I only have 10% of Eagle Country Oil Company's shares. I can be considered their second largest shareholder." Silence. The entire scene was silent. Chu Yunyu, the oval-faced woman, and the staff of Flower Stem were all stunned. With 10% of Eagle Country Oil Company's shares, he was the second largest shareholder. One had to know. Eagle Country Oil Company was a super company with a market value of more than $1 trillion. 10% of the shares would be worth more than $100 billion. It was true that Lin Fan was indeed not the biggest shareholder nor the boss. However, 10% of the shares was a lot, all right. Lin Fan saw that everyone was in a daze and could not help but say, "What's wrong with you guys? Let's go, the food should be ready." All right, Chu Yunyu replied. Then the group continued to walk forward. Just as Lin Fan said, the food was ready. When they pushed open the VIP room, they saw very exquisite and sumptuous dishes placed neatly on the table. Everyone was very busy today, and they were indeed a little hungry. When they saw the delicacies, they all ate heartily. When Lin Fan and Chu Yunyu returned to the luxurious suite, it was already an hour later. They sat in front of the tall floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the busy road outside and the pitch-black river in the distance. They felt extremely relaxed. It felt like they were not in Eagle Country but back at home in Jiangbei. Home. Chu Yunyu's heart softened when she thought of this term. She could not help but turn her head and look at Lin Fan. Her beautiful gem-like eyes flashed. At this moment, Chu Yunyu could not help but think of Lin Fan's use of perfume knowledge that far exceeded ordinary people. It allowed him to create a fascinating perfume. She thought of Lin Fan picking up the microphone and singing a heavenly song. She thought about how Lin Fan had used the perfume to save someone and how it had caused Flower Stem, which no one cared about, to become extremely popular. These things were like scenes from a movie, rippling in Chu Yunyu's mind. Gradually, Chu Yunyu's beautiful eyes went from shining to becoming a little dazed. Then she could not help but get closer to Lin Fan. "Oh Epsilon. 3 Epsilon."
Wait.
A strong wind blew outside the window, causing the river water to beat against the dam, making a crisp sound.
Wait.
The next day the sky was bright. Lin Fan slowly opened his eyes. The entire suite was empty. There was a note on the table. "Today is the last day of the perfume exhibition. I'll go to the exhibition center first. Remember to have breakfast later. Wax, Chu Yunyu." When Lin Fan saw the note, the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. He could almost imagine Chu Yunyu's sweet smile when she wrote the note. Then he glanced at his phone out of habit. A text message appeared on the screen. "Notice from Merchant Bank. 7,493,100 yuan was deposited into your account. Let's see what we can from signing in today," Lin Fan muttered. "Sign in." "Ding, congratulations, you've received 1 million yuan." Lin Fan pursed his lips and said, "What bad luck." Then he picked up the phone on the table and said, "Send some breakfast up." The best service was offered to Lin Fan's luxurious suite. Soon, truffle slices, toast, ham, M5 beef, black tea, and other exquisite breakfast dishes were served. Lin Fan ate his breakfast while playing with his phone. He was very relaxed and satisfied. After a hearty meal, Lin Fan did not stay in the Royal Hotel for long. He drove the Ferrari 812 alone toward the exhibition center. He did not know where it was because today was the last day of the perfume exhibition, or if there was another reason. There seemed to be more people at the exhibition center today than 2 days ago. The number of people at the entrance was at least twice as many as 2 days ago. However, when Lin Fan walked into the exhibition center, he realized that it was empty. Other than a few staff members, there were no customers at all. What was going on? Lin Fan was a little confused as he walked forward. The next moment he was stunned. Not far away, there was a dense crowd of people who were all standing in a long line. How many people were there? 500. 1,000. Or tens of thousands. Everyone in the exhibition center was probably queuing up here, right? Lin Fan followed the mass of people and strode forward, looking into the distance. Finally, his gaze landed at the end of the line. It was Flower Stem's booth. These people were all queuing up for Flower Stem's booth. Were they all here to buy the perfume? In reality, it was just as Lin Fan had expected. They were indeed here to buy perfumes from Flower Stem. "Give me 1,000 bottles of each perfume," a Caucasian man said. "I'm sorry, but we've limited it to 5 bottles per person," the oval-faced woman said. "What, 5 bottles? Are you trying to get rid of customers? Hurry up and get me 1,000 bottles," the Caucasian man shouted and slammed the table. The oval-faced woman frowned and said, "If you continue to cause trouble, we'll blacklist you and won't sell any products to you." The Caucasian man was about to shout a few more words, but when he heard this, he immediately fell silent. Then give me 5 bottles." After paying, he did not leave immediately. Instead, he turned around and went to the back of the line to queue again. Seeing this, Lin Fan's face revealed a strange look. At this moment, the oval-faced woman happened to see Lin Fan and said excitedly, "Mr. Lin, you're here." Chu Yunyu and the others who had been busy stopped what they were doing and looked at Lin Fan. Lin Fan smiled and nodded, "Yeah, I'll help too." "No need," Chu Yunyu said. "They can line up and register slowly. You can just sit and rest." Lin Fan smiled and said, "As a major shareholder, won't I be too useless if I do that? Let me do something. It's boring to just do nothing." Chu Yunyu thought for a moment and said, "Then you can make an electronic version of these names and addresses, classify them, and summarize them." "All right," Lin Fan replied. Lin Fan placed his hands on the keyboard. Like a phantom, he quickly entered the names, addresses, and numbers into the laptop. Then he categorized and summarized the areas, numbers, types, and so on. This scene made Chu Yunyu's eyes ripple. Lin Fan first displayed his perfume knowledge that was far superior to ordinary people. Then he displayed his singing voice, which was like the sound of nature. Then, with incredible medical skills, he used perfume to wake up Riley. Today he displayed his superb computer skill. Lin Fan, what else could he not do? In Chu Yunyu's eyes, Lin Fan was shining like the sun. The setting sun dyed the clouds in the distance red, as if celebrating the successful conclusion of this perfume exhibition. There was still a long line at Flower Stem's booth. After the exhibition center notified them that the event was over and security guards came to chase them away, everyone reluctantly left. Today, all the employees of Flower Stem were extremely busy. However, they did not show any signs of suffering. On the contrary, their faces were full of happiness and fulfillment. At this moment, Lin Fan said, "Everyone has worked hard these few days. Tonight, let's go to the palace to relax." In the afternoon, Lin Fan received an invitation from the royal family. They wanted him to come to the palace to attend a banquet to thank him for saving Princess Riley. At that time, Lin Fan asked if he could bring other people along. Regarding this, the royal family directly gave an affirmative answer. Flower Stem's employees immediately let out excited cries. Under the escort of the Rolls-Royce fleet, a tall and ancient-looking palace gradually appeared in Lin Fan's and the others' sights. After entering, they saw clear streams, green plants of various shapes, and jagged hills everywhere. It could be said that there was a perfect scene with every step, making people linger and praise what they were seeing. In the distance, a man in a black suit said in fluent Hua Nation language, "Mr. Lin, nice to meet you." Yesterday, this man had gone to the exhibition center with Queen Ibai and the others. He had been to Flower Stem's booth as well. Even though Lin Fan did not communicate with him at all, he had a photographic memory and easily remembered him. When Lin Fan and the others approached, the man in the black suit continued, "I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Marin Melvin." It was also when they got closer that everyone smelled a familiar perfume on him. It was the scent of Flower Stem's perfume. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Melvin," Lin Fan said. "Mr. Lin, your perfume is amazing," Marin Melvin exclaimed. "It has a wonderful smell. In addition, it makes me feel energetic. This should be considered holy water in Hua Nation, right?" Holy water. This was the psychological effect that Marin Melvin had after seeing Lin Fan use Flower Stem's perfume to save Princess Riley. Even the princess who was suffering from a chronic illness could be treated. Of course, it would be of great benefit to his body. In fact, this was also one of the reasons why many people fought to buy the perfume today. Due to the media, many people in Hua Nation felt that the locals were stupid while foreigners were smart. In reality, the vast majority of foreigners could not compare to the people of Hua Nation. Lin Fan did not expose Marin Melvin's words and said casually, "As long as you like it." "Of course I like it, I won't use any perfume that isn't from flower stem in the future," Marin Melvin immediately exclaimed. The two of them chatted as they walked. Not long after, they arrived at the magnificent palace. At this moment, men and women who looked very luxurious in formal attire were standing in the palace. Some were in groups of 3 or 2, whispering to each other, while others were chuckling with their lips pursed. The atmosphere was extremely relaxed. Someone seemed to have noticed Lin Fan, who had just walked in, and could not help but say, "Welcome, Mr. Lin." Immediately, the people who were conversing with each other turned around in unison, and their gazes landed on today's main character, Lin Fan. 366 Praise, courtesy. "Mr. Lin, welcome. So this is Mr. Lin, he's younger than I thought." "How young?"
Eh?
A wave of welcoming and discussion rang out in the palace. All the topics were about Lin Fan. Lin Fan did not care too much about this. He looked at the food and wine neatly placed on the table and turned to the staff of Flower Stem. "Everyone should be hungry." As he spoke, he took a drumstick first. In fact, everyone from Flower Stem was indeed a little hungry. With Lin Fan taking the initiative, they did not hesitate anymore. They picked up the steak, chicken, and other delicacies and started eating in big mouthfuls. At this moment, a crisp sound rang out not far away. Then a beautiful figure slowly walked over. "Hello, Mr. Lin." Behind Lin Fan, a magnetic voice sounded, and there came the refreshing fragrance of Flower Stem's perfume. When Lin Fan heard that, he turned around slowly. He saw a lady with fair skin, a voluptuous figure, exquisite facial features, and a head of silver hair that was tied up high. She wore a small silver crown. She gave off the feeling of a fairy walking out of a fairy tale. She was filled with a noble and sacred aura. Although it was his first time seeing her, Lin Fan felt a sense of familiarity from the other party. "Hello," he said after a while. "I'm Riley's sister, Talia. Thank you for saving poor little Riley," Talia said sincerely. Lin Fan thought to himself, so, she's Riley's older sister. No wonder she's so familiar. However, it's rare that she's so fluent in the language of Hua Nation. "Mr. Lin, may I ask if you used Hua Nation's magic, no, I should say a legendary technique, to save Lil Riley?" Obviously, she was extremely curious about this. Lin Fan smiled and said, "It's not a legendary technique but traditional Hua Nation medicine." "Hua Nation medicine, it's really amazing," Talia said. Then she asked some questions about traditional medicine. Lin Fan, who had Sun Simeo's medical experience, could answer all of them easily. As Talia listened to Lin Fan's narration, it was as if she was listening to a fairy tale. She was extremely fascinated. At this moment, soft music sounded in the spacious hall. At the same time, all the bright lights disappeared. In its place were swaying stage lights. "Mr. Lin, may I have a dance with you?" Talia asked. Then she seemed to have thought of something and turned to Chu Yunyu. "This should be Ms. Chu, right? May I borrow Mr. Lin for a few minutes?" "Of course, no problem," Chu Yunyu smiled. From the looks of it, Talia seemed to be obsessed with Lin Fan. However, Chu Yunyu was not jealous. On the contrary, she was very happy. It was because Lin Fan was the person she liked. At the same time, she had never thought of possessing Lin Fan alone. The fact that Lin Fan was able to attract more people, including the Princess of Eagle Country, Chu Yunyu was naturally very happy. This further proved that the person she liked was very outstanding. "Mr. Lin, shall we dance together?" Talia asked again. Lin Fan said, "But I've never danced." "It's okay, I'll teach you." Talia did not wait for Lin Fan to speak again. She held his hand and walked toward the center of the dance floor. She swayed her body to the music. At the same time, she did not forget to guide Lin Fan along with her. Soon, Talia realized that she did not even need to guide Lin Fan. On the contrary, she was the one receiving a lot of help from Lin Fan. He helped her make her movements smoother and smoother. She performed a perfect dance that she had never done before. This kind of situation had never happened before despite dancing with the best dancers for many years.
eh,
Chu Yunyu was watching Lin Fan and Talia from afar. Looking at their agile figures and elegant movements, it was as if they were a pair of elves dancing in a dense forest. It was mesmerizing. Chu Yunyu was still not jealous, her beautiful eyes shone even brighter. Lin Fan's knowledge of perfumes far exceeded that of ordinary people. His singing voice was like the sound of nature and his medical skills were amazing. She also realized that Lin Fan had superb dancing skills. It was impressive enough for anyone to possess one of these abilities. However, Lin Fan alone possessed all of them. Chu Yunyu even had a feeling that this was not all of Lin Fan's abilities. With this thought in mind, Chu Yunyu's heart began to beat wildly. He was the person she liked.
eh,
The music gradually stopped, and all the stage lights gathered on Lin Fan and Talia. Immediately, the resplendent palace was filled with warm applause. In the past, they applauded mostly out of courtesy. This time everyone was sincere. That was because Lin Fan and Talia's dance was simply too good. Talia smiled and said, "Mr. Lin, you just said that you haven't danced before. Lying will make one grow a big nose." Lin Fan wanted to check if his nose had grown. He rubbed his nose and smiled helplessly. In fact, he was not lying, he really had not danced. However, Lin Fan had obtained expert-level dance techniques before. He did not even need to have danced before, his body could instinctively perform an excellent dance. He could not explain it at all. At this moment, a series of dull footsteps sounded in the distance. Following that, Queen Ibai, who had a benevolent expression without losing the dignity of the royal family, and a group of nobles slowly walked over. "Greetings, Your Majesty," everyone in the hall said in unison. "Welcome everyone," Queen Ibai nodded. Then she used her slightly turbid eyes to scan the hall. Finally, her gaze landed on Lin Fan. "Mr. Lin, welcome to Eagle Country's palace." "Thank you," Queen Lin Fan said. "I should be the one thanking you," Queen Ibai said. "Thank you for saving my Lil Riley." Her words were extremely sincere. Today, the doctor did a comprehensive checkup on Riley and found that she had completely recovered. Riley was Queen Ibai's favorite. Now she was finally safe and sound. This was all thanks to Lin Fan. Then Queen Ibai picked up a wine glass and said, "Mr. Lin, let me toast you." At the same time, everyone in the palace raised their glasses and said in unison, "To Mr. Lin." The queen and all the nobles toasted together in the palace. This courtesy was unparalleled.